Good evening, everyone. I'll be chairing tonight. Nick Pilch will be late to the meeting, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the Planning and Zoning City of Albany virtual meeting of Wednesday, September 14th, 2002. Staff, will you take the roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Moman?
Yes, there.
Commissioner Waddy?
Here.
And then Vice Chair McLeod?
Here. I'll start by reading the land acknowledgement statement. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lisjan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. Moving on to item 3, ex parte communications. Have there been any? No, seeing head shakes, and I have had none, so that's negative. We'll move on to item 4, the consent calendar. Are there any commissioners that would like to pull any of these items from the consent calendar? No. I just had one comment about item 4.1, the first minutes. And then is there anyone in the public that would like to pull any of these items from the consent calendar? Do we have anyone in the queue?
Not seeing any.
Not seeing any members of the public. Then I just had one comment about item 4.1, the minutes for July 13th. It was page 4, line 5, concerning parklets. It said that I oppose limiting the capacity of any street. I don't know what I said, but that doesn't make any sense. So if we could just strike that, that would be it. So that would be my only correction. Do we have a motion to, do we need to approve the minutes separately now? Yes. Item 4-1 or?
I'm happy to make a motion with your amendments to pass the consent calendar as amended.
Okay. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Moman. Should we take the vote? Commissioner Waddy?
Aye.
Commissioner Moman?
I will abstain from voting on 4.1 because I was not part of the meeting, but I would vote yes for 4.2 and 4.3.
Okay, I'll vote yes on all 3 items. Okay, those items have passed. Now moving on to item 5, announcements, communications. That would be a staff report. I'll hand it over to Community Development Director Bond for that.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair McLeod. I wanted to do one announcement that's on the agenda and then one that's not on the agenda. No, 2 that are not on the agenda. For the one that's on the agenda, I wanted to give you a status report on the working draft of the housing element. Since the commission last saw the housing element in July, the City Council held 2 discussions, the first on July 29th and the second on September 6th. Ultimately, the City Council directed staff to make some edits to the document, particularly in Chapter 6, in the section related to tenant protections. There was quite a bit of back and forth at the council meeting in September, in particular regarding the wording of that section. And so we did make those edits. We have submitted the working draft to the State Department of Housing and Community Development. We were the 52nd out of the 109 jurisdictions in the Bay Area to submit the working draft to HCD. So we're right in the middle of the pack, as it were, in getting our housing element reviewed by HCD and hopefully leading to conclusions process early next year. We are by no means finished. We will continue as staff and consultants will continue to work on the document. In particular, we'll be doing both formal and informal outreach and engagement with anyone and everyone that's interested during the upcoming 90 days. Typically, we won't hear anything. We won't get a formal letter from the State Housing and Community Development Department until the 90th day. But they may, and we expect them to call us with questions and comments on the draft as they're reviewing it. And we may want to begin working with the commission on some of those things during the 90-day period. In addition, we'll be looking at the comment letters coming in to cities that are ahead of us. And if we're seeing that they're receiving some comments that we expect to get, again, we would start to work on those in advance of the 90 days. Ultimately, you should expect that there will be a surge of work again on the housing element in the December, January, maybe February timeframe as we get those comments from HCD in December and quickly work to address them and then continue to incorporate comments that we get from people in the community and other stakeholders. So it's a nice milestone to have achieved, but we're not finished yet. So that's the status report on that. I did want to mention that right now the commission has a total of 4 members. Chair Pilch will be joining shortly for this meeting. He's unavailable initially. There is an agenda item at the City Council on Monday evening to appoint your 5th member. I have not met this person, I believe. Name is Sandy Reek and has a professional background in construction management. So I would expect if indeed the position is ratified, the appointment is ratified on Monday, that you'll have a new commissioner for your next meeting.
Okay, great.
And then I'll just mention, we do expect to be easing back into hybrid meetings in October, assuming the technology works and assuming that COVID-19 case rates are not spiking that cause us to kind of reverse course. So this meeting is online. Our next meeting will be as well. And then in part because we really need to start sending out notices for the next meeting. We'll be preparing them tomorrow. But once we get assurance that the technology is working, we'll be making that transition, probably your first meeting in October. So thank you for the opportunity to make those announcements.
I have a question. Do we take public comment on these items or no, not usually? Or
not usually, but there's no reason if you wanted to invite people to make a brief public comment, there's no reason not.
Okay. Do any commissioners have comments on the report?
No.
No. Is there anyone in the public that has their hand up for comment?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay. Well, then seeing none, then we'll move on to public comments. Item 6, for persons desiring to address the commission on an item that is not on the agenda. You may have 3 minutes to speak. So is there anyone in the queue with their hand up?
Yes.
To address the commission?
We have 2 speakers so far. The first speaker is Jeremiah. Jeremiah,
Okay.
you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, good evening. So I mentioned this before during public comment, and I noticed nobody's really doing anything about it. So on Masonic, between Dartmouth and I guess Gilman. So basically this is where Dartmouth runs, or Masonic runs into Santa Fe. I'm trying to use my knowledge here. Yeah. So basically, where Masonic on Masonic between Dartmouth and Santa Fe, I guess, right next to the BART tracks. There's no striping in the middle of the road, you guys. There's no line in the middle of the road. So you don't know, side of the street you're on. It's kind of strange. I don't know if anybody's observed that or if anybody from the city has went to investigate it. But there's no striping down the middle of the road, and it's kind of odd. Usually down every road, there's a yellow line or a double yellow line. Now I'm just wondering what's going on. I mean, it's been like that for a few years. Maybe it's been overlooked. I mean, obviously it's been overlooked, but I was just wondering if somehow, we have complete streets, or yeah, it is where, Santa Fe, between Dartmouth and Santa Fe. I'm looking on Google Maps right now. So it's on Masonic. There's no striping at all. I mean, in the middle of the road, there's no yellow line. So I was wondering, like, when we're going to paint that. That way, you know what side of the road you're on. So maybe that could use some attention. I know down normal streets like Cornell and Evelyn and streets like that, really there is no line down our normal streets. But on Masonic, there is yellow stripes on the middle of the street, at least between Dartmouth and Marin to Solano. So if someone could just check that out, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker, Don Hockett. You have 3 minutes starting now.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Don Hockett, and I'm a field representative from NorCal Carpenters Union, Local 713 in Alameda County. I'm speaking on behalf of approximately 36,000 carpenters, brothers and sisters across Northern California, including thousands upon thousands in Alameda County. What is area standards for labor, you may ask? It is apprenticeship, healthcare, local hire, and a livable wage. A livable wage with medical and retirement benefits that allows workers and their families to live in the communities they work in. This also means those wages will be reinvested back in the local economic community as they spend their earnings. And their tax dollars will help fund local schools and government. A commitment to accredited apprenticeship programs to guarantee we will continue to have a trained, skilled, and experienced workforce that is asked to complete high-quality projects in a safe and timely manner. This provides opportunities not for a job on this project, but a career path for many men and women who have or will go through our pre-apprenticeship programs that we have out there in the Alameda County area. We are part of a Helmets to Hard Hats program for our veterans returning from service. By adding area standard labor wages to the city's pre-qualification language, you will show your consistency that you value not just the city, but also the men and women building the city itself. I would very much like to have a real and valuable conversation with each and every one of you, as well as the developers, on how you can cultivate a prosperous construction industry. The NorCal Carpenters have thousands of members in Alameda County, and each one of them will be a great asset to any future projects you plan. I look forward to talking more about this with you in the future. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you for your comments. Are there any more speakers?
Yes, there's one more speaker, David Wimmer. David, you have 3 minutes beginning now.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to Jeremiah that, hey, the Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't handle things like, striping on streets and such. So, you shouldn't be asking them for, why and what and how they can do something. You should be going, I think, like Public Works or the traffic engineer, because I don't think the Planning Commission is going to, wants to spend their time. It's really not their responsibility for the action you're asking for. I think you need to go to a different place, and that's it.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And just to clarify, it would probably be the Transportation Committee that would be appropriate for those comments. Okay, any more speakers?
I'm not seeing any at this time.
Okay, then. Well, we'll move on to item 7-1, PA 22-032 minor conditional use permit for 3 food trucks at 545 San Pablo Avenue. Staff, do you have a report for us?
Yes, one moment. Just trying to share my screen. Sorry, having a little bit of technical difficulties here. Let's see. Let's see. Jeff, I might have to use you as my avatar for tonight.
Okay.
I'm going to send the presentations to him right now. Let's see. One moment. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, no problem.
I just sent it over, Jeff. Let me know if you got it. This is 545 San Pablo.
All right. Bear with me 1 second and I will be opening this up. There we go. You should see my screen now.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
got it.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Christopher Tan, Associate Planner for the city. Once again, before you tonight is Planning Application 22-032, a conditional use permit for food trucks / trailers at 545 San Pablo Avenue. This is the former Casper site, which many of you guys may recognize. Next slide, please. Some background on the property. The subject property is an 8,750 square foot commercial lot with an existing 1,134 square foot restaurant building on site, which was previously Casper's, as mentioned. In July of this year, the project proposal was processed via a minor use permit, and that's handled administratively by the Community Development Department. Public notices were sent out to property owners and occupants located within a 300-foot radius of the subject property. After receiving numerous correspondences voicing concerns, staff elected to bring the project to the commission for further review. Next slide. Here's a street view of the property as it sits today. And next slide. Project request. The applicant is seeking a conditional use permit for 3 food truck trailers to operate with outdoor seating within 50 feet of a residential neighborhood. Next slide. And some business information. The proposed business is to operate under the name Yes Coco. There are no alcohol sales proposed under this project scope. The existing restaurant building is proposed to remain with no work proposed to the exterior or interior of the building at this time. Outdoor seating and minor landscaping improvements are proposed to complement the food truck or trailers. A total of 6 off-street parking spaces are proposed. The business is proposed to operate from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily, and a maximum of 5 employees are anticipated to be on site at any given time. Next. Here is a snapshot of the proposed site plan provided by the applicant. Next, please. And conditional use permit. The subject parcel is zoned SPC, which is Solano, San Pablo Commercial Zoning District, sorry, and has up 100 feet in depth. The restaurant uses are permitted by right in the SPC zoning district pursuant to section 2012-040 of the Albany Municipal Code. Within the code, section 2020-070 states that a use permit is required, however, for outdoor seating that is located within 50 feet of a residential neighborhood. The applicant is proposing outdoor seating along the rear portion of the property, closer than 50 feet from the R3 zoning district, which abuts it directly. Next, please. And here's just an excerpt from the code that states that the key points being that a use permit is required and a major use permit is required to go before the commission for review and possible approval. And with that, the Planning and Zoning Commission can impose conditions, including but not limited to hours of operation. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Next slide. And then this is just a snapshot of the zoning map. You'll see that 545 San Pablo is an SPC and the R3 zoning district for high density residential abuts it at the rear. Next. Parking, there's an existing parking lot on site, which everyone might be familiar with. The applicant is proposing to accommodate 6 off-street parking spaces in the existing lot. The food trucks are proposed to be located along the rear portion of the property with parking just in front of it. And a special condition of approval was added to provide bicycle parking by the applicant. Next slide, please. Staff, as I mentioned, staff has received a number of correspondences voicing concerns regarding noise generated by the outdoor seating and the food trucks. There were concerns also voicing the number of off-street vehicle / bicycle parking, the restroom locations or lack thereof, potential food truck air emissions, and potentially offensive odors issues with the vehicles running, and issues with the vehicles running into the rear fence. Next slide. The project is categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to section 15301 existing facilities. Next. And with that, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission review and approve the proposed project subject to the findings and conditions of approval. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. I see that the project applicant is also in attendance this evening, and he's prepared to answer questions as well. Thank you.
Do you have the site plan? Was that updated at all from what we received in our or on the public site?
No, the site plan you saw in the presentation is the latest and the only one we received. The applicant wasn't able to update. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I believe Commissioner Moman had his hand up first. You have questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions to the owners as well as the city staff. I would start with my questions to the owners. I would like to know what is the project's relationship with the existing front building. The staff report mentions that there will be no work proposed to the building, but will that be cleaned, maintained, and used for any purpose? Will the street frontage along that building be cleaned and maintained?
That's a good question. In my speakings with the project applicant, I know that there were several efforts to clean up the graffiti that was on the existing building. Unfortunately, it was tagged at least one other time after the initial cleanup, and so I believe that's been cleaned up. As mentioned in the staff report and the presentation, no work is proposed on the existing building on site at this moment. But I'm sure the project applicant could probably speak a little more to the details as staff's not aware of those particulars.
Any other questions or?
Are they going to
We could have the
answer now, or-
applicant on in a minute to, maybe we could ask our questions and then have the applicant respond afterwards.
Sorry, the applicant is not online right now?
No, he is. We can bring him up. I was just answering any staff questions first, but
Oh, I see. Okay, sorry. Then
Yeah, why don't we
that
ask
was my
staff
question.
questions, then we can bring the
I will-
applicant
I will
on and
first
then ask
okay,
our
thank you.
questions of the
Okay,
applicant.
so my question is about the parking, like how the parking is, determined for the temporary use, and if in the future a business is started in the front building, how would the parking comply for both the uses?
yeah, that's a great question. So parking, as we might have mentioned, with a few of the past projects, is determined by the use and also the square footage of the building on site. So this is a little bit of a unique scenario where there's no new addition proposed to the existing building. So parking remains and no further parking requirements were triggered with this project scope. If the building were to increase, the parking requirement for a restaurant uses is 1 space per 400 square feet. But as we look at it now, the city would recognize the parking as is to be grandfathered in until a new use or modifications to the existing building are made.
So the 3 stationary food trucks are not considered as any extension of the use, or
Yeah, the zoning code doesn't go into that particular
I see.
nuance. Yeah.
Okay. And then my next question is, what governs the business hours? This business, project is proposed to operate between 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., which is kind of, a bit late for restaurants. So, what is there any code for that, and is it compliant with that?
Yeah, there are operational hours detailed in the zoning code, which is in 2020-070. And so for restaurant uses, they're permitted to operate from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Friday and Saturday.
Yes.
And that's allowed by right for restaurant uses.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so I have some questions. I would save them for the owner when they are online.
Okay, Commissioner Wadi.
Thank you. Quick question for Chris. Just to clarify, so the application states that the project description includes tenant improvements to create a health department licensed commissary kitchen for 3 trucks and caterers and a barbecue restaurant that specializes in large event catering, offering a sit down and takeout venue. Is that no longer accurate? Because that doesn't seem to align with any of the other documents that have been published or talked about tonight for this project.
That's a good point. The applicant modified the project has gone through multiple iterations between city staff and the applicant. That supplemental questionnaire application was not the same one that was initially included with the submittal application. It was submitted after the fact. So I'm not sure where the applicant stands now. I know that the vendors in question were kind of in flux depending on the timing of approvals. So I'm not sure if the business plans have changed, but that's something the applicant is here to answer tonight.
But there's no longer, like, a commissary kitchen is clearly not food trucks. It requires a certain amount of refrigeration. So that I was anticipating the commissary kitchen is the building, like the old Casper's building, and the food trucks are the food trucks. But I think it's important to understand, like, what is the actual scope of project that we're reviewing tonight? And is it inclusive of any changes to the building, which is what their application says, or is it not? So I think that's maybe one question when the applicant comes on, we can get some clarity on. And then maybe the second question for you, my understanding is that if you're still sort of bringing some food trucks onto private property, the health department will still require a certain amount of, restroom facilities, hand washing facilities, things of that nature for customers. I could be mistaken though. Do you have any insight into whether there are any other health code related requirements, given many of the concerns from the neighbors on this about, the availability of facilities and things along that nature? If there's any other regulations outside of the planning and zoning code that will mandate those in the subsequent review process?
Yeah, that's a great question. Unfortunately, I'm not well versed on Alameda County health requirements for food trucks of this use on private property. Obviously, they would have to obtain that, and Alameda County would be tightly integrated into the approval process overall. I'm not sure how far the applicant has gone as far as reaching out to Alameda County. He may have some more insight on that information.
Okay. That wraps all of my questions then for you. Maybe it's time to bring up the applicant.
Yeah, unless Commissioner Moman, you have another question for staff? Your hand's still up.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Wadi, for raising that question regarding commissary kitchen. I exactly had the same question, and was assuming if they would be using Casper's restaurant space for some, for that or something else, or it would be located somewhere else outside the site. So that comes, brings into question, like, where would the cooking be done? Would the food trucks be used for cooking on site, or they would be just used for reheating and serving the food? We would like that clarification from the owners when they're online.
Okay, great question. I don't really have any questions beyond what other commissioners have asked. So why don't we bring the applicant on to answer questions and explain their project to us.
Yes, one moment. Okay, Julius, you can speak with the commission whenever you unmute.
Hello.
Good evening. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Julius. Yeah, we are planning to try this new idea using a food truck or a food trailer, because we try to make the hot dog restaurant back, but the city from health department from Alameda, they are very shortage after the pandemic. So also they need us to changing the hook. That very shortage take about more than a years to make the restaurant back on. So we think about to try the new things with the food truck, and that way we open like a free market. We let the best food coming to sell to using our space. So, hello? I'm still on it.
Yeah, we're listening. Commissioners had a few questions. Did you hear them, or would you like us to repeat them?
Okay, please repeat it, because
well, one question was about the scope of work with the existing building. Is there anything going on in the existing building? The existing restaurant? No improvements or a commissary kitchen or?
We're not doing that because this health department suggests that might take 8 months to the years. So we think about to just let a food truck come in first, and then the next step, we make the kitchen works. Because for take too long to make the restaurant back, it's not good, because if nobody doing any business over there, and then the graffiti guys, and also that some people sleep under the bush to make the street ugly. So we think we like to do the fast as possible to have a business going there. So we think about food truck is it's more flexible, and then we have a couple guys very interesting. One is the Doordash, because I know one of the founder, his fathers, and then also we have a hello. Is any? I'm still.
Yes, we can hear you. Keep going.
Yeah. And then the other guy, it's similar like a Penta Express. They have about 650 franchises in the whole United States, and they are worried about too much after COVID-19 to lease a shopping mall, the long lease. It's very difficult. They shut down 350 restaurants. So they think about using a food truck, and also sometimes like a central kitchen to make the best of food. And because we don't the owner for this property is one of the church the friend from our church, and right after COVID he had to back to China, and then he asked me to clean the graffiti, clean those so we keep cleaning many times. We find out the only way to stop this is do some business. Of course, we think about insurance company or retail store, but I do have the retail store right across the street, El Cerrito. Even that we not success because not many people buying from the retail anymore. So only thing,
Okay. One other question was whether, and I guess it's maybe the difference, are the food trucks actual food trucks that drive in and out on their own? And is the food being prepared in the food trucks or entirely separately and being brought into, let's say, a food trailer, or it's just presented and served? Or is there actual cooking going on in the food trucks, food trailers?
We know a lots of the person or company own the food truck, but we only have a street space. So the deal is we ask who make the better food or which food truck making, so we are like we open the space for the best food truck to move in. If somebody not clean or somebody noisy or somebody too much smoke, then we can call somebody else to come in to replace. Basically, we're not doing the food first until this getting popular, and then we have a couple Chinese guy. They are very famous as Chinese cook in this in this area. Couple one is in the Ranch 99. Then we can start our own food. But basically, we like to do the faster way. Just ask those guys. They paid us like $100, $150 a day, and then we rent a space to them. They do his existing food. That they have across the street. They have the burrito guy. Once they make a good food and decent price, then we are more flexible. That's just we are thinking. Of course, all the food trucks have to qualify from the health department from Alameda County.
Right. And then there were, Commissioner Waddy, did you want to ask a follow-up question?
Sure, yeah. So one of my questions was, are there going to be any restroom facilities available for patrons who come onto the site, eat their food there?
Say it again.
Will there be any bathroom facilities available to the public?
Oh yeah, first we are renting that portable the toilet. I mean, the portable, the one maybe make order two pieces first, and then we want to know because the inside they come with the restroom, but I worry about the door is not big enough for the handicap. So that part, of course, we can open the building one, but we don't know this can qualify or not. But basically, we rent two portable toilet.
And then my second question is, how is the existing building being utilized? I've noticed that the windows are partially, blocked, and there's some sort of signage about some international company of some sort. Can you explain what business is transacting in that building right now?
Yeah, that's the Dr. Shea. He bought the building because his son's coming to the Albany High, but then he's from China. He's a pharmaceutical guy, so he tried to do some business in here, but when the COVID-19, he had to back to the China. But those windows they look like a smoke, but that's just a form. I mean, just a sticker, right? If we need to make a shining or we just peel out the sticker, then we'll be back to the before. And yeah,
So is there no business currently operating out of that building or?
No business. We try to do something, but you know, it's very business kind of slow. We don't know what kinds of business can survive. Now, but now we got a good deal with the property owner. We just pay for the property tax, then they let us to use that. So we got a very low rent.
Let's see,
Thank you.
Commissioner Moman, do you have another question?
Yeah, a related question. Does that existing building have a toilet? And if it has, can it be used for this food court?
Mr.
What?
Liu, did you get the question?
Oh, I don't have much discretion, but we just want to try this new idea because it's much more flexible. We try to give it people, when the restaurant open, more than about 60% is go to the rent, so also is a lot of regulation, but if we using a food truck there, it's much more flexible and easier. And
yeah, I guess the question was, are the bathrooms, restrooms in the existing building able to be used, or is there some way that could be, I don't know, upgraded or something, some way to be used for the project?
Yeah, we try to turn to the bubble tea or the hot dog shop back on, but not right away because that takes time. The main problem is it's the hook. We try to replace
the range hood.
Yeah, the spinger. Yeah, they come with the spinger, but that one only in the Bay Area. It's only one factory make that. They have very shortage. They need about 8 months to make to order the exhaust. The hook. So that's just the problem we worry about the timing, but of course we like to turn back to the restaurant. This is our main idea, but just for the time consuming.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Moman, did you want another follow-up question?
I would like to know if the food trucks would be moving in and out every day, or they would be stationed there for a longer term.
I think we would be every day because one of my friend, they have he own 5 food truck, in the Bay Contra Costa or Alameda County. It's more than about 800 food truck. They all have the kinds of groups. They talk each other. They have an event going together. Remember during the Fremont and San Pablo, they used to have off the grill. Yeah, we know the company very well. They're in San Francisco. So we only have a street space. I believe there's more than 20 or 50 food truck like to move in because we gave them pretty cheap, the rent, $100 a day, and then also we do the marketing, and the Doordash also we're marketing this for the people coming, got a free French fry or ice cream or something too. So there's lots of the promotion going on in here. I hope that pretty soon all the food truck like to move in because they don't have to go the street, driving everywhere. But also they like to stay in, the food truck people don't like to keep moving. They like to stay there forever. But just before they don't have this public space. But once we have the private one, they like to stay here if they make a good food. Also, we would check it if they don't have a good food or too expensive or not clean or, nobody interested, we will let them go, changing to other better food truck. So we kind of between a customer and a food truck owner.
Okay, Commissioner Moman, another question or?
Yeah, I would like to know if there is difficulty or a longer time commitment in getting a license for the existing restaurant. That I think assume would be for cooking purpose, kitchen. I would like to know if that existing building could be used for indoor dining, just for indoor dining, and food truck could be serving people.
We already apply, but the person, the inspector from the Oakland Airport, the health department, they told us because there are shortage in the people after COVID-19. All the old people got to retire. Young people don't know the new code, so they give us an estimate about 8 months to 1 year to back on to works. That's just the main problem for all the restaurants today.
So you cannot use that space even for seating?
Oh no, we can use, but we cannot using like a regular business. We cannot using as like a restaurant. Of course, we can storage. We hope we can use because inside come with a stove, refrigerator, everything. Just have it before the Casper. So everything, all the equipment still there, but just maybe not allowed us to use it until we got a pass for the health department.
Okay. Any other questions? Maybe we could move on to public comment at this point. Is there anyone in the queue waiting to speak?
Yes, we have 3 hands raised at the moment.
Okay, why don't we have the first speaker? Go ahead, please.
A lot more hands. Actually, Jeff, could you let them speak? For some reason, my Zoom is not giving me that permission.
Okay. Start with Jeremiah Garrett-Punquello. Please go ahead, Jeremiah.
Yeah, thank you. Overall, I think this is actually a great idea and a great use for this business. I mean, it was a restaurant before serving food, and now, it still wants to serve food. Maybe one of the food trucks can serve hot dogs. Maybe Casper has a food truck. I think it's a great use. I really do. And it's going to be winter time pretty soon. And so maybe the actual Casper, the building, can be used as maybe indoor dining only, as a spot to eat out of the rain. And tell you the truth, it's a great idea. I mean, I've experienced food trucks before. I'm a longshoreman at the Port of Oakland. And so there's a lot of food trucks around there. And a lot of people eat lunch on food trucks. It does kind of remind me of the food truck event that happened every Wednesday down the street. And I think, Albany could use some more restaurants. And it sounds kind of fun, to tell you the truth. I mean, it really does sound like a fun idea with a bunch of different food trucks, kind of, in Albany High School, we used to have this one day out of the year. It was called International Food Day. And it was so neat. There was, soul food and Portuguese food and Indian food and Latin American food. And it was just such a fun day at International Food Day. And so this would kind of be like an International Food Day year round. I just think it's a great idea. I mean, at least it's a better idea, than it just sitting vacant like it is now, just collecting graffiti and, the grass growing everywhere. And so I'm really in support of this. I do know one thing about food trucks, though, is that every day, at the end of the day, the food truck is supposed to go to a certified location and clean everything out. And that location is supposed to have a drain in the ground that goes, I guess, a black water drain. And so the food truck's got to be really sanitized and cleaned every day, which I'm sure they will be. But I just think this is a wonderful idea. I don't see why not support it. I think just give this business a chance. And who knows, there could be a sushi food truck. Who knows? just think it's a wonderful idea. It's kind of like a mini Solano stroll year round in a way, you know? So I don't know. What a great idea. Keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
I apologize if I mispronounce this name, but Patty Conyas, if that's correct, please go ahead.
Hi, I'd like to ask 3 questions really quickly. Will these food trucks use city power or generators? And will the food truck crews be cleaning after 11 p.m. with the potential of there being people using that site long after 11 p.m.? And if you're planning on utilizing Doordash, these 6 parking spaces will be needed for them, and not so much the public will be able to access them, and they'll have to use street parking, I would imagine. And I think they're asking for a variance to put the food trucks closer to the neighboring fences than 50 feet. And I worry that it's really going to impact all those people that live there. And that's what I was curious about. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Veronica Davidson. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. I have a couple comments and questions on this. One, I just really wanted to shine light on the letter that was sent by the neighboring business and the concerns about trash and bathroom use and the hours of this location from Cast Ceramics. She shared it with me and I said I would make sure that it was illuminated that she has those concerns as the business just next door. And I have some concerns being a business owner right down the street. You know, we deal with a lot of trash from Taco Bell. And they've taken in all of their garbage cans. And I know that the city put some in front of the Hotsy Totsy, which are welcomed. We spend a lot of time cleaning up after these, and there are limited bathrooms along the avenue. I'm also concerned about a business running food trucks coming in, profiting in that space, but running generators, which will impact the neighbors right behind and the neighboring businesses. I don't think that that is a good way for Albany to promote supporting businesses. I would also like to ask that if we have food trucks coming in and out, my understanding is that this site needs to be a host facility site, which means they have certain things that need to be approved by the health department. And then all these trucks need to be going in and out of a commissary kitchen that is fully approved, which it doesn't sound like this site will be. Thank goodness Albany's building one right down the street. I would love to see some other uses for this space. My other concern is this space has been unkept for the past couple of years. There have been multiple opportunities. We ourselves have gotten a commercial kitchen approved in the same time frame, and we face shortages, et cetera. So I don't think that that's a good reason for not, you know, moving things along. And we've kept our property safe, repaired damages multiple times, yet this property has done none of those and now is asking to put a business in that will very negatively impact the neighbors behind and around with noise and a lot of increased traffic. I would suggest that we look at some other creative solutions for a property like this and ask that the owner do that. The final concern is, you know, this owner has been potentially like removed. And so who will be really overseeing the day-to-day operations of this and maintaining that safety? And the final thing is cars pulling in and out onto San Pablo Avenue. We have a lot of issues with this, with driveways and parking lots. So having food trucks added into this and then people turning around where people are going to be eating in a parking lot and parking seems concerning. So I'd love to hear what the thoughts are surrounding that. Thank you, and sorry for that being a lot of different thoughts.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any more speakers?
Yes, we have a few more. Next, okay. Ruth Drenade, please go ahead.
She's still on mute.
Ruth, you'll need to unmute.
Unmute.
There you go. Okay, go ahead, please.
I own the property directly behind the fence of the proposed food truck business, and you've received my letter stating various concerns, and I will reiterate them here for the public. But I also want to draw attention to the fact that in spite of the recently adopted San Pablo Avenue specific plan, the east side of Keynes Avenue is still very much a residential neighborhood with families who know each other, gather together, watch their kids grow, and have a sense of pride in their neighborhood. Not unlike each of your neighborhoods, I imagine. In the document called Required Findings for Approving Conditional Use Permits, the city found there were safeguards afforded to prevent noxious or offensive emissions, such as noise, glare, dust, and odor. That's item 2, issue C in the document. In addition, the city found the project would not be detrimental to the health, safety, convenience, and welfare of those in the area. That's item number 3 in that document. And I disagree with those findings. I believe there will be noxious and offensive noise from 3 generators, morning setup and nighttime cleanup, food prep, cooking machinery, hood and exhaust fans, employees and customers talking, laughing, calling out orders, etc., all day, every day. I believe there will be noxious and offensive glare from lighting that may be added to make the area safe for employees and customers. I believe there will be noxious and offensive odor from the food being mostly fried and the garbage collecting in bins. In addition, the rodent and pest infestation, the overflow parking, and the litter that will accompany the outdoor venue is certainly noxious and offensive to the adjoining residents and the neighborhood. I find it hard to believe the city does not see the potential harm these things will cause, or that such a business would indeed not be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of those of us in the area. I truly hope you will reconsider these findings. Lastly, I'd like you to remember last week's heat wave and opening your windows after the sunset to let the bay breeze start to flow through your home and cool down its interior. Now imagine that your home had 3 food trucks in the backyard and all that noise, odor, air, and light pollution that you'll also be letting in with that breeze. And even if you open a door, maybe a rat will wander in too. Thus, I'm appealing to each of the commissioners' sense of community and duty. Shin Chang Ri LLC, a global development management company, doesn't give 2 hoots about my quality of life, nor that of the neighborhood, nor the city of Albany. It's up to you, all the commissioners, to do the right thing and ensure that an appropriate business is approved for the old Casper's site. I'm confident that such a business exists, but this is not it.
Sorry, your time's up, and
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
Next speaker, please.
Next speaker.
Francine Ron, please go ahead.
Unmute.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm on the other side of the fence also. I am Ruth Gertie's neighbor, and I agree with everything she said. I live on a 3,800 square foot lot, and that includes my front yard, backyard, and my home. I didn't actually measure with a tape measure, but there's not much room back there, and I'm worried about having quiet enjoyment of my property. I don't like having food trucks and generators and toilets up against my fence. I am very, very close to it. And I worry about smoke that is toxic, that's the breeze is going to, I watched the smoke from Big Al's Hamburgers, and that's barbecue smoke, and it has toxins in it, and it blows over towards, well, it would blow in my direction, and there's people in the neighborhood with respiratory, cardiac problems, bronchitis, and asthma heart conditions, and this is not going to be good for us, being right up against all the fumes, and also the generators are very noisy. I looked online and it's very high decibels, and it sounds like jackhammers, and this is not what I want. This has become extremely unwelcome and intrusive. And I hope you listen to what Ruth has said, because I do agree with her. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Yes, Ken McCroskey, please go ahead.
Thank you. I would love to see this property in use. It's been blight for a couple of years now, and I understand the owner's been trying to, or the property manager, it sounds like, has been trying to remediate that, but it certainly hasn't been that successful. So I would like to see some use, but there are lots of issues with bringing in a very different use that will affect the neighbors directly. There's a wood fence at the back of the lot, and putting 3 food trucks with generators along it would be a very different experience than when the restaurant itself was open. So I'd just like to offer some ideas of requirements that could help ameliorate these problems. You know, when the restaurant itself was in use, there was certainly a vent hood with, you know, noise and emissions going on. And that's kind of part and parcel with food trucks as well. But if you could require them to use direct hookups to a power line, then you could eliminate the generator noise and emissions, which certainly would be in line with some of our policies about green aspirations. Requiring a more solid fence of an appropriate height, perhaps a cinder block fence at the back of the lot to close off that area to both noise, sound, entrance by people, rats, what have you. The ADA parking spot is located at the front of the lot, furthest from the food trucks. Kind of a separate issue, but that seems like an odd place. I understand that may be the best place where it fits, but if you're trying to enable people to get close to the use, that's not working very well. And then lastly, you could require that music not be above a certain level, that speakers are pointed towards San Pablo and away from the homes behind. As I say, I'd love to see this property in use, but it's a very different kind of use, and I hope that the commission will look at ways to ameliorate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Yes, Elizabeth Berg, please go ahead.
Yes, I have some of the same concerns as Ruth. I'm her neighbor on the other side from Francine, so I share a fence line with the Casper's space. And when it was in business, there were people that came and went. There was noise and garbage that was generated by that business, but all of that was inside the building. This will be the opposite. This will be noise and garbage being generated outside the building. You know, the owner's proposal mentions off the grid in El Cerrito, and I think a few other people have mentioned that. That happened once a week from 5 until 9. And it was on a street in a business district. There was, at no point in time was that on someone's fence line. The other thing they mentioned in their proposal is something called Foodie Land that happens over a 3-day weekend at Golden Gate Fields. Again, that's very far from anyone's home, does not impact people's day-to-day lives. This proposal of having food trucks there from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. will absolutely change the experience of our lives in our homes and in our yards. So I hope that's taken into consideration how much that's going to change our day-to-day lives, the people who live near here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Are there more speakers?
Yes, several more.
Okay, next speaker, please.
Gary Kurtkos. Again, apologies if I mispronounced that. Please go ahead, Gary.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Gary Kriticus, thank you. I just wanted to speak up. I think I would like to echo the comments that Ken earlier made, just the speaker just before this last one. I think the idea of a food court is a wonderful use of a space that has been lying fallow for many years now. And an outdoor food court would be wonderful. But I think the management of this new venue need to take into consideration the concerns that have been expressed earlier about noise. And I think the concept of maybe a cinder block fence in the back sounded like the nice one that Ken made. The other thing is the idea of generators running and exhausting significant amounts of air pollution seems like an abysmal concept that could be easily ameliorated by having direct connections, direct electrical connections, and requiring that. And that's really all I had to say. I think it's a great idea, but I think that the concerns that have been raised need to be ameliorated.
Okay.
Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Yes, David Wimmer, please go ahead.
I kind of agree with a lot of what the immediate neighbors are talking about. But I mean, I guess I want to. I mean, they know that they bought their houses and they know that they have businesses, commercial space over the back fence. So I mean, I would think, we shouldn't relax any of those kind of development regulations for that property. I mean, what would be required, of that property if they decided to tear down the existing building and put in a restaurant? What is the setback requirements to the back fence? What are the the ventilation requirements? To try and minimize kitchen hood exhaust and that sort of thing. I mean, that's the sort of thing that those homeowners, when they bought their property, that's what they knew that they might have to expect, and they're and so I think it's fair that that any kind of site development should stay with development codes and regulations that those homeowners were counting on as staying. Having said that, I guess one thing is we're talking about people keep mentioning generators, but I'm not sure if that's actually what's proposed. I haven't really heard from the developer, or maybe I wasn't listening. But definitely no generators. I mean, this and with climate change, we're going to allow some kind of gasoline-powered generators. Are you kidding me? No, we have to have a power hookup. I'm sure they've got an electrical service to the building. They could, take that out to the trailers, to the whatever. And we should not have any gas, propane, or any of that kind of stuff in those units. And I also don't know why we need to have parking. Why can't we move the food trucks away from the fence, get rid of the parking? There's 90% of the businesses along San Pablo don't have parking. If you're going to make this a conditional use permit, we'll let them not provide parking. Put a handicap spot on the curb, and then let everybody else just park out on the street and pull those trailers out 20 feet from the back fence. They can plant some trees or do some screening back there, and pull the patio eating area closer to the sidewalk, and they'll get more people that'll see it and be interested in what's going on. And So, yep, that's my 2 cents worth.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Another speaker?
Yeah, we have one more public speaker, and if there are others, please do raise your hand. Next would be Scott Davidson. Please go ahead. Scott, I think you're muted. There we go.
You there?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, so I just wanted to call in really quick, and I recognize the sentiment from a lot of the callers that have called in. All I really want to say is that I'm a business owner on San Pablo. I'm pro-business. I would love to see that particular property be developed. My concerns are the generators and also the bathroom. I'm not sure what the bathroom use is or what kind of bathrooms are proposed on the property. I've dealt with a lot of issues over the years of showing up in the morning to people that have peed on my patio and dealing with feces and vomit and that kind of stuff that happens on San Pablo. So I'm just really concerned if there's not like a proper bathroom situation going on, then I'm very concerned about that. But those are the 2 things, generators that are very concerning. I don't know why they can't hook up to their own property and bathrooms. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please.
I'm not seeing,
nice. Like your vomit cup.
I'm not seeing any other speakers at this time.
Okay, then. I see Commissioner Pilch is back. I don't know, did he join this item in time to participate, or should we?
I believe I have. Hi.
Okay, so you're part of the discussion. I'm happy to continue this item as chair, and I could hand it off after this, or we just continue on. We could decide that afterwards. So are there any commissioners that would like to make comments and discuss this item? Commissioner Waddy, not Chair Waddy anymore. Old habit.
Thank you,
Okay,
Commissioner.
Commissioner Waddy, please go ahead.
Sure, happy to share some of my thoughts. So to kick things off, I echo a lot of what the public comment we've received tonight has expressed. Specifically, I don't have any concerns in general about the concept of there being food trucks on this property. And I'm not sure who all on this commission was around, but pre-pandemic, there was another proposal to include some food trucks at this property, along with not exactly a beer garden vibe, but there was definitely some intentionality around how the space was going to be programmed to bring families and activities and really make, a sense of placemaking and enliven it. And it was, I think, fairly well thought through. It was an informational item where the applicant was really trying to gain our feedback to have this be kind of a thoughtful and integrated business that was listening to some of the concerns of neighbors. So the concept around that, I don't have any concerns with, but I do have some serious concerns with the proposal that's before us tonight. One of the primary concerns that I have is the lack of incorporation of the building. To me, it kind of feels like like a cheap way out of dealing with this property and the issues around it. And I understand that there are some constraints. But this property has a building, and this building should be incorporated into the business that's being run here. And I feel like a lot of the proposals that are on the table feel like just sort of a quick and dirty way to get some revenue going, and doesn't sort of, with all due respect, doesn't feel terribly well thought through. I don't have a whole lot of confidence that the proposal, the folks running this business understand all the rules. The regulations doesn't seem to be a terribly strong business model. And also, I don't feel like the placement of the food trucks are being sensitive and good neighborly. I think there is a lot of other space on this property where food trucks could be sited, where a lot of thought could be placed to provide added buffers or landscaping or things at the rear property line to kind of show a little bit of good faith to the neighbors back there. It doesn't necessarily ameliorate all of their concerns. They may not be 100% in support, but would kind of show that effort of bringing some of the noise an activity away, maybe the seats aren't at the back, maybe the seating is closer up, maybe that's more of a passive area for folks. I don't really like the idea of just porta potties being brought in when, again, there's a building with proper facilities, and I think that should be utilized. And lastly, it doesn't bring a ton of confidence into a proposal that really, to me, the devil's in the detail of how it's run, whether it'll be successful or a bit of a nuisance in the community, to how the property's been maintained thus far. It doesn't give me a strong inclination that this business owner is going to do things completely 180 from how the property has been maintained to date. And I know that's a little bit of perhaps a chicken and an egg problem right now. But it has been a fairly blighted site, and it's been a little disappointing to drive by it for the last several years in the condition that it's in. And I understand you can't help graffiti, but a massive sign that feels very sort of turning your back to the street. It just isn't lending itself, along with the proposal that's before us right now, of giving me a whole lot of confidence that this proposal will be executed well and done in a way that is complementary to the neighborhood and sensitive and considerate of its context, its business owner context, as well as its residential context. Again, I'm normally very, very supportive of businesses coming in and being creative. I think on San Pablo, we've seen folks use outdoor space well. I think some of the folks who spoke here tonight run businesses on San Pablo that have outdoor spaces that even have music, and it's blends in, and it's really a value add to the community. And I have not been given sort of a confident enough business model of folks who seem to have a vision or have any history of really knowing how to do this, to execute it in a way that brings me any confidence, again, in a business model that really needs that. This isn't, if this was just somebody saying, I've got a great idea of how to run a restaurant inside of the old Casper's building, I think that would be very different. But when you're bringing it outside, it brings, I think, a heightened need to really have a strong business model and understanding of how to run a food and beverage business, and have really thought through those impacts of the adjacent property owners. So I don't feel like I can be supportive of this item tonight. I would be open to a continuance or just taking a vote along those lines. But right now I haven't really been presented with information that gives me confidence to be able to feel that this is sort of necessary, desirable, compatible, kind of thought through with the neighborhood context at this point. So that's those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Momin, you go ahead, please.
Thank you. I totally agree with a lot of public comments, and also a lot of comments that Commissioner Wadi has provided. In general, I support food trucks on street and also food courts, and I also support this food court project proposed on this lighted site and on this unused parking lot, because it would be operational daily throughout the day. It will activate the site and the street life around it. It would surely be some improvement to the current condition of the site, but I also don't think I can support this project in its current form. I think it surely needs a lot of mitigation measures and strong design improvements to make it more acceptable and functional. The concerns of noise generated by outdoor seating and the food truck generators are really valid. The business is proposed to operate until 11 p.m. That will further exacerbate the noise problem in the evening. The fumes caused by generators are surely a health hazard. So I would, therefore, really recommend that the owner should reconsider the layout to mitigate some of these concerns and improve the site layout, make it more integrated, detailed. I think the food trucks and outdoor seating should not be located near the rear fence. It should be away from that. I would recommend rearranging them behind the existing Casper's building. There is enough space that would make a number of configurations possible for the food truck and seating arrangement there. And parking could be along the north side boundary in one row. I think there is enough space to fit at least 7 parking spaces there. I assume that the current layout is trying to kind of maximize the visibility from the street, but I think food court would be still visible even if it is behind the Casper's building, because the entry to the site is really wide. And also there is a large sign at the corner of the site. I don't know who owns that, but it would be really interesting if that sign is kind of revived in an interesting manner. That would add to the vibrancy of the place. I also think the owner should consider installing, if they cannot use the existing Casper's building for indoor seating, they should consider some temporary shed structures to reduce the noise. Some draperies, curtains could be used. The owner has cited examples of off-the-grid and foodie land, but they are all once a week or once a year activity. They are not really comparable. A better example to look at would be the food court at Michel Bay Boulevard. Although it is not exactly comparable, it is not as close to residents as this project is, but it has still some interesting ideas about how outdoor seating could be designed, how the protection, temporary shades could be provided for weather protection and privacy and sound barriers and stuff like that. I would recommend owners should look at that for some inspiration and design ideas. Regarding the landscape improvements, it is very vague, explained in the staff report just as minor landscape improvement. I think it would be helpful if the owner provides more specific details. The project demands a lot of site improvement. There could be overall site cleanup, surface repairs, planters, trees, seating layout, buffers between parking and seating, vehicle barriers and buffers near the rear fence, light fixtures, trash bin locations, and so on. So I would expect a more detailed integrated site plan that would include all of these and more. I support the idea of supplying power to the food trucks from electric grid. It would reduce the noise and the hazardous fumes. This is particularly important because the food trucks would be operating from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. I really strongly recommend that owners should explore that solution. And then owner mentioned that they would provide portable toilets, but I think it would be preferable if they can make the toilets available in the front building, if they are available and possible. If not, portable restrooms should be arranged in an appropriate locations and maintained properly, regularly, so that it doesn't create a nuisance to the neighbors. Similarly, trash management is very important. The owner should have a plan for trash collection and removal. Parking, I think in absence of a Doordash service, I think parking should be enough, but if they are planning to use Doordash or any other takeout service, parking could be a problem. And then lastly, I would recommend reconsidering the business hours. I agree with the public remarks that there could be a lot of disturbance even after 11 p.m. So in general, I support the project, but not in its current form. I would also vote for a continuance on this.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Piltz, do you have comments you'd like to make? Or
Yes, thank you. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I don't have to elaborate too much because the previous two commissioners, their remarks would be very similar to mine. I, in general, support and very much support business. The idea of having food trucks is a great idea as well, and I support that idea. as a very general concept, but I think the way it's executed here needs a lot of room for improvement. One question of clarification, perhaps of staff, is the building, Casper's building, currently being occupied or used at all?
No, it's not.
Okay. Yeah. So I agree. It is a little strange to have that building closed off and then have the food trucks around it. I'd rather see the building be used for the restroom facilities and power, perhaps as a power source as well. I agree that generators would be not in line with our climate action goals and also a nuisance to the neighbors. Having the trucks right next to the property line, the residential property next to the residential properties is not a great idea when you have so much space to put those trucks. They could be put elsewhere, and then perhaps the parking could be put back there. I want to give the developer the benefit. I am skeptical as well, but I want to give the developer benefit of the doubt, and I'd be in favor of continuing this if some significant changes were made by the developer and brought back to us. But I'm certainly not prepared to approve this in its present form. And I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll make my comments and then we can move on with this. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I hear all the neighbors. I think the site plan is woefully inadequate for us to approve it. I think it would need a lot more specificity, a lot more detail, a lot more attention to all the things we've been talking about in terms of buffers and seating areas. I really don't like the food trucks or trailers. It's still a little bit ambiguous to me what they are along the back fence. I don't think that's an appropriate place for them. There's room on the site to reorganize everything to the south for the food trucks, the seating, putting the food trucks closer to the actual restaurant. I think a lot more thought needs to go into the site plan. You know, in general, I am supportive of some kind of food court. As a commission, we were very supportive of the beer garden idea that came to us about 3 years ago or something, but the whole thing was thought out much better. The hours of operation ended at 10 as proposed then. That might be something to think about here. The other thing is that, you know, the site plan has got to come back with the trash can locations or dumpster locations. We need to know where that's going to be. That can have a big impact on neighbors if it's in the back. We need to see where the bathrooms will be. I think it's a shame not to be able to use the actual restaurant bathrooms. I think that's a much better ecological solution than these portable toilets, which, you know, could be feasible, but they're not a great solution. It's full of chemicals and not an efficient way to have a bathroom, and not all that sanitary for the food staff. I don't know how the food staff, I mean, there were questions about hygiene for the food staff as well. So I would like to see the applicant explore the idea of using the bathrooms in the building, whether the building could be used for indoor seating as well without getting health department approvals. I don't know, I'm not well versed in all that, but if the bathrooms at least could become available, that would be one big step forward for this project. And the site plan should also have show bike parking. I think, like Commissioner Moman said, the parking could be all on the north side, and the other side could be for the food trucks and seating. And then we could have at least a bike corral on the north side as well that could accommodate something like 6 to 10 bikes. I think that would be useful. Having said all that, I don't really think there's much more to add. The other idea Generators. I think it's just simple. We just say no generators allowed. That's a very simple concept, that they can get the power from the building and they can run electrical, they can do conduit and run electrical outlets to each food truck location to plug in as they need to. My concerns about the food trucks, I guess, are also the noise from the ventilation systems. They're not that quiet, so getting them away from the back fence would help, and getting the food trucks away from the back fence in terms of odors for the neighbors, I think would also be a very good idea. So if anyone has a motion, we could entertain it. Commissioner Waddy?
Sure. I'm happy to make a motion to continue this item 7-1, planning application 22-032 indefinitely, with a option for the applicant to make changes in alignment with the feedback we've provided tonight at a later renoticed date.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. Well, any further discussion? Then we'll go ahead and take the vote. Commissioner Pilch?
Yes.
Commissioner Moman? I couldn't hear you, but it looked like
yes.
Yes, okay. Commissioner Waddy?
Aye.
And I will vote yes also. So that that motion passes 4-0. Continuation of item 7-1, minor conditional use permit for 3 trucks at 545 San Pablo Avenue to a date uncertain, essentially.
And so if I may, Chair McLeod, just for members of the public, that means that when this comes back to the commission, people in the neighborhood will get another postcard notice.
Okay, everyone will be renoticed as essentially a new project.
Right.
Okay, all right, great. Should I just continue as chair, or Commissioner Pilch? It seems like you're on your phone, and it's easier for me to do
Yes.
it. Okay, I'll just continue on in so I can read everything on my screen.
If you'd be so kind as to continue, that'd be great.
Okay, great. Next item on our agenda is item 7-2, PA 22-037, design review for a new single-family home at 829 Santa Fe Avenue. The applicant is seeking design review approval for a new single-family home. Staff, do you have the presentation, please?
Yes. Once again, this is design review for 829 Santa Fe Avenue. This is for a new single family home. Much of the commission probably remembers this from the July 13th hearing. I don't believe Commissioner Moman was present at that one, but I'm going to do a quick review of the project, keeping it succinct. I know the project applicant has a formal presentation prepared and is ready to present. So with that, I'll just go ahead. Some background on the property. 829 Santa Fe is a 5,000 square foot lot with a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,867 square foot building built in 1931. The project was last reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission at the July 13th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission hearing for a first review. At the hearing, the commission expressed concerns with the overall size bulk of the proposed home, along with the expansive width of the front facade, the faux Mediterranean architectural design, the proposed roof forms, overall building height, the lack of landscaping throughout the entirety of the subject property, and the proposed off-street parking configurations. At that hearing, the commission voted to continue the project to a date uncertain to give the applicant time to refine the project. Here's a street view of the property as it sits today. Project request, the applicant is seeking once again design review approval for a new single family home. The project scope includes demolishing the existing home on site and building a new 4-bedroom, 3.5-bathroom, 2,736 square foot home with a maximum height of now 22 feet 2 inches. The home's appearance is proposed to be a modern Mediterranean appearance, and there is also an attached ADU proposed on the north end of this home. Once again, a street view of the property as it sits today, as there's no And then this is the front facade of the previously proposed elevation that was shown at the last Planning and Zoning Commission on July 13th. Here's the 3D rendering of that previously proposed design. And here's the revised front elevation of the home. You'll notice that the roof form has changed. They're now going for a flat parapet roof, which reduces the overall building height from 26 feet tall to around 22 feet. And here's a 3D rendering of the new proposed design. You'll also notice that there's greater details on the front facade, slightly more fenestration, and a little more ornate detailing. The project is subject to the exceptional design requirements as prescribed in the Albany's residential design guidelines, as it exceeds a 0.45 FAR. Some of these exceptional design treatments that the applicant include the new modern Mediterranean architectural style, fiberglass windows with simulated divided lights with the 3 mullions throughout the home, 3 balconies on the second story with vertical metal picket guardrails, solar panels on the roof, new landscaping now throughout the entirety of the site, and new permeable pavers for the proposed driveway. Here's the previously proposed landscape plan. And then here's the refined landscape design. You'll notice there's greater implementation of hardscaping and drought-tolerant plantings at the rear of the building, which previously there were not. And then just really quickly, again, there is a proposed attached ADU on the north end of the property, pursuant to section 20.080 accessory dwelling units of the Albany Municipal Code. This portion of the project can exceed some of the underlying zoning site regulations for the R1 zoning district. And so with that, you'll notice that there is a shorter side yard setback than is typically allowed for primary dwellings here. But because this is an ADU, it can exceed that. Parking. There are 2 off-street parking spaces proposed for the home, which is consistent with the requirements of the R1 zoning district. 1 parking space is proposed in a single car garage attached at the front of the home, and the second space is proposed directly adjacent to it in a side-by-side configuration. Both spaces are proposed to be clear from the front setback area. There are no additional parking requirements for ADUs pursuant to the Albany Municipal Code. The applicant, for this round of review, has also provided a dedicated parking exhibit that illustrates the parking scenarios within the neighborhood and the various driveway widths as well. Based on this information, the applicant is requesting a 20-foot wide curb cut to accommodate the 2 off-street parking spaces. Staff has received a letter of support that was previously accompanied with the previous design, but that was also included as attachment 5 of the staff report. No other correspondences have been received other than that. The project is categorically exempt pursuant to section 15303 of the CEQA guidelines. And with that, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission review the proposed project and provide feedback to the applicant and staff. Draft findings and conditions of approval are provided should the commission decide to take action. And with that, I'm concluding my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Once again, the applicant also has a presentation prepared. Thank you.
Okay, why don't we take questions for staff and then follow that by the applicant's presentation. If anyone has questions for staff, please go ahead. Commissioner Waddy.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I know at the last hearing I had asked if we had any information relating to whether the existing structure was in McGregor or not. Were you guys able to do any research to figure out the answer to that question?
Yeah, we looked deeper into our Laserfish files system, and unfortunately just record keeping was really poor back then. So we don't have any official documentation stating that that indicates that it's officially a McGregor house. So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? I have done. So why don't we go to the applicant's presentation?
Sure. One moment. Let me promote Rebecca, project architect. Hi, Rebecca. I think you should be able to share your screen whenever you're ready.
She's still on mute, it looks like.
Yeah.
There we go. No, back on mute.
Okay, sorry.
There we go. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Amato. Our architecture firm, Amato Architecture, prepared these designs, and thank you, Chris, for doing a great summary of that. I'll quickly run through some of the same things that you introduced. This is the previous proposal where we had the hip roof, and some of the concerns from the July 13th meeting were that the roof forms added extra height and bulk to the building, and that the design appeared massive. So one of the first things we did, these are some of the other comments as well, that it appeared to be out of context with the neighborhood, and the request to improve the architectural quality, aesthetics, and some of the design details to enhance the project was a request. There was a request for improved landscaping at the front and the backyards. And then there were some concerns about loss of on-street parking and proposed driveway widths. So I will dive into our response in addressing those questions. We modified the lower roof forms, added articulation, and diversified the exterior finishes to break up the massing. We introduced a parapet at the second floor roof instead of the sloped hip roof, which allowed us to lower the maximum proposed roof height from 26 feet to just a little bit more than 21 feet on the sides, and a slightly elevated roof line at the front, with the goal of having the entryway be the most pronounced architectural element of the project. In these views here, we imposed the existing home into a 3D model so you could see it relative to the adjacent homes. We did a study of the 5 houses on either side of the subject property, as well as the 10 homes across the street. So we're showing here the existing home on the upper, and then our new modified design down below, where you can see kind of the shed roofs, and the single story at the front of the house helps reduce the massing and integrates it into the neighborhood much better. Again, here we have the existing photos from angles on the upper right and bottom left, and then showing those same angles with the proposed design with a lot more articulation with architectural details. We've added some of the, elements that McGregor was known for with corbels under the roof eaves at the front, and we've modified the corners of the house and the front entranceway to have some wood siding to bring warmth and also reduce the overall feel of the massing of the home. These views show the rear of the house. The bottom left is the existing home with a parapet roof. It is 2 stories, but that lower level is below grade, and there are a number of steps inside the house. So one of the main proposals and goals of this project was to create the ADU where our clients' parents plan to live and share some common area spaces, but also have their own access to the backyard and their own entryway. And the lower right shows the native California vegetation that we're proposing with the clumping grasses and the pavements. So again, here's the front proposal and the back elevation, as well as the side elevations, which we've modulated the wall depths and set the wood areas we've recessed to give articulation along the sides of the structure. Again, here's the landscaping plan, as Chris mentioned, much more developed with raised planter beds and some permeable paving. This slide represents the parking proposal and showing that the existing sidewalk with the 12-foot wide curb cut allows for 2 parking spots on street on Santa Fe Avenue, and the proposed increase of the width to 20 feet so that 2 cars could easily come and go out of the driveway still maintains those 2 parking spots. So there is no loss of on-street parking with the new proposal. And then finally, here's the existing home, again, given put in the neighborhood context, showing some of the larger homes further north down the street. And I wanted to point out that south of this property, most of the property lots are half the width of this one. So when you're evaluating the look of the width of the structure, it is relative to the widths of the lots that do increase as you go further south down along Santa Fe. And I just wanted to finish here with a quick little video that I think gives you a nice understanding of the new home in the context of the neighborhood. So again, the sloping roofs at the front that gently give a pedestrian scale to the project, squaring off the back of the house and really maximizing the interior space without increasing the bulk of the project and just squaring off the back of the house. You'll see that we've added solar panels as well, and the new construction would be all electric in keeping with current code. And that is our presentation. We hope that we've addressed all of your concerns and responded in a way that you can see favorably on this project. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that very thorough presentation. Do any commissioners have questions for the architect? No, seeing heads shaking no, then we can move on to public comment for this item. Are there any people that wish to make public comments?
I see 2 speakers at the moment. One moment. Okay, first speaker is Ken. Ken, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Thanks. I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to write this all up and get you a letter, so let me see what I can do. First of all, I want to say I support my neighbors absolutely in being able to rebuild their house, and I have some issues with a few of the details, but I like the way that that they're using the property and they're working on a multi-generational capable household. I think that's actually quite close to something that one of the letter writers talked about was, creating multiple units on a site of this size. And they essentially have done that. As far as the McGregorness of this property goes, having toured the property a couple of times when it has been for sale over the last 20 years, I can tell you that the spaces inside feel cramped and uncomfortable. The going between rooms downstairs, you're changing levels all the time. You're opening a door to get to a stairway, and then going around a corner to get to that stairway. The progression of spaces is not conducive to people with mobility problems, and really not conducive to more of an open plan living that I think is more current. And as I say, the home feels cramped inside. There were some comments last time about the sides of the building and that design. I think if you actually looked at some of the other homes like mine at 821, you would see that at least one of my sides is completely flat without any articulation. It's not uncommon. I think the architects have done a good job of responding to your comments. I will say that the higher roof that was proposed previously was not an issue with me as a neighbor, and I mourn for the maintenance that the flat roofs will require going forward. But that's my own personal opinion. With the parking, I don't have an argument with having the garage space and the additional space next to it. My comments before were more about the fact that with the open plan that they have, you actually have space for 3 cars parked exteriorly. No one else has that kind of configuration on the street. There are a couple of places, 3 or 4 places with 2 cars in front of a garage parked in the public right-of-way, out away from the sidewalk. This would be very different. Their illustrations also erroneously showed that the neighbor had a large parking plaza next to their house. They do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Yes, next speaker, David Wimmer. David, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Just a couple of quick things. As far as, doing some architectural details to stick with some kind of a McGregor theme or whatever. I'm one of those people that, if you got a McGregor house, that's great. If you build a new house, you don't have to put it in McGregor style or, that's one of those little things that the owners and the architects do to please the city and architectural historians. I think it's I don't like it when that happens. But it is what it is. And then I'm curious, it's all electric, great, really appreciate that. It's wonderful. I'm just curious, are you doing heat pumps for space heating and a heat pump for water? And an induction stove range?
Yes, we are doing all of those: induction cooktops, heat pumps, and all electric with solar.
Super
Okay.
duper. All right, that's it. Good job. Appreciate the all electric and the heat pumps and all the goodies there. You are the new trendsetter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Are there any more speakers?
I'm not seeing any other speakers at the moment.
Then we can close the public comment session and move to commissioner comment. Commissioner Waddy, please go ahead.
Thank you. Just first want to kick it off and just say thank you to the architecture team and the project sponsor for making changes, like sincerely listening to a lot of our comments and making changes that I think have really dramatically improved the project overall. I think a couple of things in particular that to me have really improved the architectural quality of the house, including the roof form. I think the window proportions, getting rid of some of those arched windows, although it's a small thing, I think it really did make a big difference. And then, one point, I think some of the architectural details that have just provided increased warmth, articulation, shadow lines to the house that didn't exist there before in the previous iteration. I think just one note, my interest in the McGregor has nothing to do with applying McGregor-like details. I am very much not in support of sort of a faux historic applique approach to architecture. New buildings should be of their time. It should be a 2022 type of design, in my opinion. My concern for McGregor's are that of what they are existing. And I do think they are the gems of Albany, and I totally appreciate needing to upgrade interiors of the home. My focus is more on the exterior, preserving that. However, as I stated before, I understand that, we don't have policies that preclude their demolition, but in my opinion, they are fairly high quality pieces of architecture. And if you're going to demolish them, they need to be replaced with something of equal or better quality of architecture. And that's sort of at least the standard that I come forward with. I didn't think the previous version that was presented to us kind of met that bar. However, I do think the changes that have been made and incorporated into this version meet that metric in my mind. And so I'd be willing to move this project forward. Obviously, I'm kicking things off here, and I know others want to speak, but I would certainly be happy to be ready to put a motion on the floor to approve the project as proposed with those revisions. So I have no further revisions that I would need to see in order to be able to do so. So I'll just keep my comments short and sweet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other commissioners wish to make comments? Commissioner Pilch, you go ahead, please.
Oh, yeah, actually, I guess I just want to say I concur with Commissioner Wadi, and no further comments from me. I do appreciate the applicants responding to our feedback.
Okay, Commissioner Moman, any comments?
Yeah, thank you. I support this project as proposed. I was not present in the last meeting when it was discussed, but I looked at the meeting notes and the old drawings and compared. The current version of design clearly is a huge improvement. The building now has a very authentic looking mission revival character that I think should compensate the loss of the McGregor if it really was. And the building elevations look much more articulated and detailed, and yet very coherent. The color palette and finishes are also very tasteful. The house looks large in isolation, but it looks perfectly fine in the larger context. The architect has done a great job putting the house in a larger context, visualizing that in elevations as well as perspectives. And I really appreciate the architect's efforts in incorporating all the comments that Commission had provided in the last meeting. So overall, it is a great project and a good improvement to the neighborhood, and I'm happy to support it.
Okay, thank you. I'll make just a few brief comments. I really do appreciate the architects' efforts. They've done a great job at listening to all our earlier comments and addressing them. And I think it's a very good project. I really like the way the ADU is integrated. On the interior, I think it's going to be a great place for a multifamily experience, living with the older generation. I think that's a terrific concept. I like the flat roof a lot. Yeah, the facades on the side look much better with little articulation, even from an oblique angle. I think that's a big improvement. So I'm happy to support the project. And if anyone would care to make a motion, Commissioner Wadi said you would. So
sure, happy to. Happy to make a motion to approve planning application 22-032. Oh, I'm sorry, we have the wrong one up on the screen there. Let me toggle back to the agenda on my side. So sorry about this. Okay, motion to approve planning application 22-037 design review for a new single family home at 829 Santa Fe as proposed.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Pilch seconds. Let's take the vote. Commissioner Moman?
Yes.
Commissioner Pilch?
Yes.
Commissioner Wadi?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that passes 4-0. Approved. I don't think there are any story polls for this one. So there's no appeal. There's a 14-day appeal period. Is that it? Okay, then. We'll move on to Section 8, new business.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to take over, Commissioner McLeod, or I'm very happy to have you continue. Either way.
It's fine with me. Either I'll cede the chair back to you. How's that? Since you're back at home and in front of your screen. So
sure.
Okay, all yours. Thank you.
Perfectly fine. Yep. Thank you. And so we are in new business. The first item is 8.1, the 2022 Green Building Code updates. And I assume staff has a report for us.
Yes, Chair Pilch, thank you. I'd like to introduce Michelle Klaus. Michelle has made some presentations to you in the past on some of the, among other things, some of our green building initiatives. And she has an update for you on some things that we're working on this evening in coordination with the Climate Action Committee, ultimately leading to adoption of new building codes in California at the end of the year. So passing the baton on to Michelle, please go ahead.
Jeff, let me share my screen. Everyone see this okay?
Yes, we got it.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, yes. So as Jeff said, I'll be chatting about some proposed green building and all electric requirements. And I'm actually going to start off by jumping into the past and just going over a little refresher of what's been happening in Albany with green building for the last few years. So way back in December of 2020, I was here proposing a green building resolution to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which they recommended to council. And I'll get into a little bit more detail about what exactly was in that and what those current requirements are. But that was back in December of 2020, and then the council adopted that as resolution 2020-127 in January of last year. And then in May, the California Energy Commission approved that resolution and it became enforceable. In December of 2021, the council adopted an updated resolution called 2021-118, which made a few edits and expanded the scope of that green building resolution, but pretty minor changes overall. And I'll just note that that updated resolution actually has not yet been approved by the California Energy Commission, just due to delays on the Energy Commission side. So those updates aren't actually enforceable at the moment, although it doesn't have a huge impact on what we're doing tonight. And then jumping to this summer in June, we presented a draft all electric requirement to the Climate Action Committee upon their request, received feedback from them, and that was incorporated into the draft resolution that was attached with your agenda tonight, along with a few other minor changes to our green building requirements. And as Jeff mentioned, this is all sort of in preparation for the new building codes that will go into effect in January of 2023. At that time, our current green building resolution will no longer be enforceable. It'll have been expired. And so we're hoping that this updated version will be in effect before that, so we don't have a gap in our rules. And so I'll go ahead and start off with the major change that has taken place between our current requirements and this proposed resolution, and that's an all-electric requirement. So right now, our green building rules incentivize all-electric construction, but it's not actually required. So you could build a new mixed fuel building, and it would have to meet a higher energy efficiency threshold. And in some cases that puts a lot of cost and complication onto the project. And so it kind of incentivizes people to move towards all electric. Clearly that's been having some impact, as we saw with our last item, which is happy to hear about. But it does still allow gas in new buildings. So the new draft resolution here would change that to require new buildings to be all electric with no gas appliances allowed whatsoever. So that's a big shift there. And these kinds of ordinances have become much more common in the last couple of years. Over 30 cities in California have passed similar requirements, largely around the Bay Area. And another shift that's happened is that these kinds of ordinances no longer need to be approved by the Energy Commission. Originally, the Energy Commission was approving them, but now they don't, and that simplifies the whole process quite a bit. So the subject buildings for this all-electric requirement would, in general, be new buildings with a few kind of fine print pieces here and there. So for ADUs, those would be considered new buildings, and they would have to be all-electric. But there's a little bit of a distinction there. So we're specifically requiring that any new appliances installed for an ADU have to be electric, but they still would be allowed to share existing gas appliances with the house. So for instance, if you have a gas water heater and you're putting an ADU, you're converting the garage into an ADU, you would be able to pipe to that new ADU and use that same gas water heater as long as it's already existing. But if you're putting an ADU in the backyard, you're putting in a new water heater, that has to be electric. So that's how the ADU rule works in our draft here. And then we would also be requiring major renovations to be all electric. And this is defined as anything that's subject to the fire sprinkler requirement. That's summarized over here on the right side. Basically, a project where the remodel is exceeding 50% of the floor area, or where the remodel and new area exceeds 1,500 square feet. So these are pretty major projects. We have about 15 of them per year, give or take. And in most cases, they're already replacing the HVAC and water heating systems. So it'd be relatively easy for them to just do those electric instead of putting in a new gas one. But it would also be requiring, you know, the stove and the dryer and everything. Everything would have to be electric at the end of that project. And then we also have a few exemptions in here. So scientific laboratory buildings would be exempt, mainly because those can have very specific needs that sometimes can't be met by electric equipment as it exists right now. So those would be allowed to have specific gas appliances as long as they're electric ready. And then we also have a more general hardship and infeasibility exemption, you know, to create some wiggle room for special cases. In terms of costs and benefits of the all-electric requirement, at the start of the new year with the new building codes, the all-electric buildings will actually be slightly less expensive on average than a mixed fuel building. This is because the building code is requiring that mixed fuel buildings still be all-electric ready. So you pretty much have to do all of the same things that you would do for an electric building. And then you also have to set up all of the gas piping as well. So it actually adds a little bit of cost on average. The exception to this is for some large multifamily buildings. Some of the water heating equipment that's used in those cases is still pretty expensive. So on the upper end, that can be up to around $100,000 more, although in many cases it wouldn't be nearly that much. So it can kind of depend in those cases. Now, in terms of greenhouse gases, the benefit, you can see here in this chart that non-residential and residential gas usage make up over a third of the city's carbon emissions every year. So that's a pretty big chunk. That's a lot of the carbons being emitted in Albany. And this requirement would start moving us in the direction of bringing those numbers down. You know, it's only a ton per single family building per year. So it's not a huge number, but those do add up. And in particular, if you look at the multifamily, that's 1/4 of a ton per unit per year. So if we start having larger multifamily buildings go up, if they're all electric, that can really start, you know, saving a lot of greenhouse gas from going into the air. So that brings me to the end of the all electric side of this. And now on to the kind of other various green building measures. This table summarizes our current residential measures. So permeable paving, some Energy Star washing machines and dishwashers, low flow kitchen faucets, low carbon concrete, low emissions, resilient flooring, and EV chargers for multifamily. That's just a quick summary of what we've got on the books right now. And for non-residential, we have solar panels on the solar zone, parking for clean air vehicles, reduced outdoor lighting power, reduced indoor water use, and the concrete and resilient flooring requirements again. And the vast majority of these haven't changed in our new draft. There's, you know, a few changes to the section numbers and definitions, that sort of thing, mostly very minor. But there are a few places where staff does recommend some changes, and those have been put into the draft. The first is with outdoor lighting. So the current requirement is that for non-residential buildings, they have to reduce their outdoor lighting power 10% from the Cal Green standard. And this is something that, you know, it's very few projects. We don't have a lot of new non-residential buildings in the city. And it's not a huge requirement. You know, outdoor lighting is a pretty small amount of power. And the issue with this requirement is that it actually does require Energy Commission approval. So now that we've changed from the electric incentive model to the all electric, this outdoor lighting requirement would be the only thing in the entire resolution that requires the Energy Commission to approve it. And that could delay enforcement and just, you know, requires a lot of time and effort on the part of staff. So we recommend striking this measure just in the interest of expediting the implementation of all of the larger measures, in particular the all-electric component in the draft. The second one is clean air vehicles. Currently, for non-residential parking lots, 12% of spaces need to be reserved for clean air vehicles, which are zero emissions, fuel efficient, and carpool or van pool vehicles. And this is something that was taken from the voluntary tiers in the 2019 code, which is basically just a list of potential requirements that cities can choose from, kind of like a menu. So we chose this one. And what's changed now is that those voluntary tiers have moved up. So tier 1 is now 35% of spaces, and tier 2 is 50% of spaces. The state, like standard code, doesn't have any clean air vehicle requirements. So in this case, we actually recommend not changing anything and leaving it with that original 12% rather than boosting it up to the newer tier 2 requirement. And the reason for that is that we're concerned that if there's too high of a requirement, there could be some equity and accessibility issues. Not everyone can afford zero emissions or fuel efficient vehicles. And if it's 50% of parking spaces, you might end up with a bunch of empty spaces and the street's completely full. And then, that can create some larger issues. So we recommend keeping it at 12, just as it is now. And then finally, there's non-residential solar. So our current requirement is that solar panels need to be installed on the entire solar zone for new non-residential buildings. The solar zone is basically just a roof area that is designated for solar, and it has to be at least 15% of the entire roof. And it's something that was in the previous code as kind of a solar ready measure. And so we kind of bumped it up from that and said, okay, you have to actually put the solar in. But now the 2022 code has shifted that, and it's actually requiring solar and battery storage for these new non-residential buildings. And the way they've done it is a little different. They've scrapped the solar zone thing, and they're now doing it by square footage and building type. So as you can see in the chart on the right here, for instance, for a retail store, they need to have 2.62 watts of solar per square foot. So it's a really different model. And so we actually recommend striking the current solar requirements in our green building measures so that we can avoid confusion or conflict with the state code. We feel like it's really doing the job that our previous requirements had set out. It's a little bit more nuanced. And so we can kind of get rid of our solar requirements and let the state just take over that piece. So staff recommends taking that out, and like all of the other recommendations I just listed, the draft resolution that's in the attachments tonight includes all of those staff recommendations in it. And so our overall overarching staff recommendation is for the Planning and Zoning Commission to recommend the council adopt this draft resolution amending the City of Albany green building requirements. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Moman.
Thank you. Thank you for a great presentation, very comprehensive. I had recently attended an information session on the new 2020 California Energy Code. And we were mostly told the same thing that you presented, that the new regarding all electric, that the new code would discourage the use of natural gas by requiring all new buildings to be electric ready, even if the buildings are proposed to use natural gas. Therefore, the cost of the mixed fuel buildings would be much higher than the all electric building, and it would serve as a deterrent for natural gas use. But I don't remember hearing that the energy code would completely prohibit the use of natural gas infrastructure and appliances.
Yeah, that's correct. So the state code incentivizes electric building and requires electric readiness, but it does not disallow natural gas use. You're still allowed to do that at a state level. And then our proposal is to implement a local reach code requiring that just within Albany, you have to build all electric.
I see. So we, within our city powers, we are proposing to prohibit use of natural gas infrastructure and appliances.
That's correct.
I see. Okay. So in that case, I think, there is, I was reading through the city resolution, draft resolution, and I also looked at the staff memo. The staff memo on page 2 clearly mentions that natural gas infrastructure and appliances would not be allowed. But the resolution draft doesn't expressly mention that. On page 10, it says all newly constructed buildings and major alterations shall be all electric buildings. All new appliances installed to serve newly constructed ADUs must be all electric. But it doesn't say that, all construction, it doesn't expressly mention that the use of natural gas infrastructure and appliances is prohibited or not allowed.
Yeah, I think that's sort of, in some ways, you have to reference back to the definitions.
Mm-hmm.
The definition of all electric, it says that it's fueled only by electricity and natural gas and combustion equipment are not used.
I see. Okay. Okay. So would it be preferable to mention that here, or it would be mentioned somewhere in the green building code that would make it more clear that there are, of course, clear indirect references, like, there are exceptions and things like that. So when you go through that, you realize that, there are only fewer exceptions are permitted to use natural gas, and most of the buildings are not. But then, just like the memo says clearly that natural gas infrastructure and appliances would not be allowed, that kind of language is not mentioned in the resolution.
Yeah, I think we could edit it to make that more obvious. Also, if the council passes this and it becomes it becomes our new rules, we would definitely have, more architect and building owner oriented documents that are very, very
got it. Okay.
But we could add that to the ordinance if the commission would like.
Okay, yeah. So, if the city does that, I totally support that. It's not to, mention that I am kind of opposed to that. I totally support that idea.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Wadi?
Sure. Thank you for your presentation, Michelle. I think this is great, super clear. And I don't have any comments, supportive of everything there. I'd be willing to put forward a motion to recommend approval of these changes to council. I don't know if others first have comments, but just wanted to put that out there, and great work.
Thank you. Commissioner McLeod.
Pretty much the same. Yeah. Thank you for, great work on this. Been waiting for this moment for a long time. I'm getting tired. I was getting tired of gently asking all applicants to go all electric when, especially on major remodels where it's obvious they're tearing all the equipment out and redoing it, that it's the perfect moment to do it. So it's good to see both new construction and major remodels included. So I think that's a terrific move forward, and I think it's, great work. So I support this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Commissioner Momin, you have your hand up again.
Yes, I just have a comment not directly related to that. Just wanted to bring to attention of the city staff that all electric construction and PV panels are listed on community benefits in our San Pablo Avenue specific plan guidelines. And now, since there would be mandatory requirements for green building code, we may need to revise the community benefits list.
Yeah, go ahead, Director Bond.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that you're absolutely right about that, and we will be taking a look at that. We knew that was going to be those community benefits were going to evolve over time, and it's happening really quickly, which is great.
Okay. Thank you, Director and Commissioner. Yeah, so I just had one question. So I appreciate removing the one item that would require, I think it was CEC approval. And in order to expedite getting this through, that sounds like the right thing to do. So the question is, can we then put forward other things like the removed item for approval of the CEC after that as a separate submittal?
Yeah, if there was a desire to do that, we could.
Okay, great. Maybe it's not worth it for only one item, but there might be other items where we want to go above and beyond the state, or above and beyond what's approved by be able to be approved by right and get CC approval. I will say my comments are that I had some questions about the details of ADUs. So the idea was that if there's an existing gas appliance in the main house, and that would be like hot water heating, and that would be shared with the ADU, that would be an allowed use, or that would be allowed. But have you given any thought to making sure the ADU would be electric ready? Yeah, question mark.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm like 98% sure that the state code would already be requiring anything to be electric ready.
Okay.
And I'm almost certain that ADUs are included within that.
Okay. Okay, that'd be great. I'd appreciate it if you could double check that. And then for remodels, the idea was all electric is required if the remodel invokes the sprinkler requirement. But so that would be whether or not any gas appliances are to be replaced.
Yeah, as written, it is just based on the fire sprinkler requirement. And then regardless of what they're already planning on replacing, everything would have to go electric.
Okay. But what if it was a remodel that didn't invoke the sprinkler requirement, and but the remodel was of a kitchen and gas appliances, or it was a remodel of anywhere where a gas appliance was meant to be replaced or by another gas appliance, could we require that in those instances they have to go to electric?
Yeah, that's not covered in this or in this resolution. So, if you're doing a kitchen remodel, you're putting in a new stove, as long as you're not triggering the fire sprinklers, then you would be allowed to put in a new gas stove.
Okay. If we made that a requirement, would we still be allowed, would this still be allowed without CEC approval?
Yes.
Okay.
It should still be allowed.
Okay.
I haven't looked into it too closely, so that's another thing I'd probably want to check, but.
Okay. All right, then maybe that's a condition I want to add to any resolution. I do think our EV charging requirements should be higher, both in multifamily and single family. I think if we have, let's see, so single family new construction currently does not require a charger, or does it?
So that's another state code one. I'm pretty sure it requires the outlet for a charge, like a 240 volt outlet for a charger.
Okay.
And then the idea is you can just plug in whatever charger you choose.
Oh, okay. That's probably good enough.
Yeah.
Then, but multifamily is only at 20%. And I think that's probably too low, given that our state really wants to go all electric vehicles. So, but that's not the focus of this here. I just wanted to, well, I suppose if Could that be made a part of this resolution, or is it kind of out of scope?
We have an EV charging requirement within this resolution. It's the same one that we've had on the books already, where 20% have to have chargers in the ground, and then the rest have to be EV charger capable. Basically, that they have the electrical capacity there, and any wiring that has to be installed during construction is installed during construction.
Okay.
And that's still ahead of the state code, even as it's been updated for this new cycle.
Mhm.
So that's what's in there now. Theoretically, you guys could recommend that it be raised even higher than that.
Okay. I think I might try to do that as well, because my impression, being a plug-in vehicle owner, is that there are never enough chargers around, and that 20% is far too low. And then finally, oh no, let's see, I asked that. Okay. So before we go to any resolutions, I think Commissioner McLeod has some more comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of go back a little bit to the ADU question. Are we just making a clear distinction between attached and detached ADUs?
Not exactly.
Can we? Or, I mean, it seems like a detached ADU should be all electric. I mean, you could bury a gas line underground and take it back there, but just as simple to go all electric, I think.
Yeah, so the idea behind this model was actually to be a little bit more extensive than attached versus detached. So the idea is that with a detached ADU, I think it'd be very unusual for people to try to connect their existing appliances to a detached unit. So those would be all electric. And then for an attached ADU, they would still need to electrify, like the stove, for instance. If they're going to have a washer dryer in there, that has to be electric. So for many cities, they say detached is electric, attached is whatever you want. And then those attached units end up having gas stoves, and gas water heaters and gas whatever else. So this would basically just say anything new that's going into your attached unit needs to be electric. And then your detached units are pretty much going to be electric no matter what.
Okay, all right. Well, that sounds good. We don't need the extra definition then, or the, yeah. Then I guess I wanted to follow up a little bit on Nick's proposal for remodels that are under 50% of this. I mean, that's, I think, the other threshold. Has the Climate Action Committee been looking at that? I mean, that's kind of the next step, and everybody knows that, and we're sort of working our way down. Because it seems to me it's going to take some thought and some planning. It's not always simple to just take out a gas thing and put in an electric thing. You know, it can be quite disruptive and expensive. So I don't know. I think, you know, plus incentives come into play. I don't know. Have you been looking at that already as your next step of what you're working on?
Yeah, I think, you know, that's generally what's considered an existing building reach code. And there are like maybe 2 or 3 cities that have started working on that. It's something I've started thinking about and looking into, but it comes with a different group of problems, as you were mentioning. You know, there's issues with compliance you need to deal with. There's problems with the actual electrical requirements and with cost, and it starts getting a little trickier. So there's definitely interest among the Climate Action Committee members in pursuing that. But yeah, I would argue that it's a bit outside of the scope of this, which is really more of a new building ordinance. And then these major remodels, which are almost new buildings because there's so much work being done.
Yeah, well, I guess my impression, I would suggest we leave that alone for now, the lower threshold replacement kind of ordinance, and really work it through with the Climate Action Committee and other bodies, and even our body again to review it. It could be its own separate thing, and it would take a lot more careful language. I think it's a little premature to try to just add it into this one. You know, I'm all for it, but I think it just takes a little more planning And then regarding what is the definition of a clean air vehicle space? I mean, what are we talking about with that exactly? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that's essentially like vehicles that can get an HOV sticker, and then also van pool vehicles like that. I think there's a number of people they have to carry. It's like 8 people or something. But it's basically for HOV sticker cars, essentially.
And that gives you what when you go into one of these non-residential parking?
It's just a designated space. So it's essentially preferential parking.
Okay.
For people with these more efficient cars.
Okay.
It's just striping.
Okay. Well, it seems like that, with the state mandate for all electric vehicles, that we're sort of getting there for every vehicle, or will at some point. So yeah, I think the existing requirement is fine, just leaving it at 12%. I think I'm good. I'm ready to support this.
I'm sorry, did you mention 12%?
Yeah, that was the clean air vehicle space requirement that we currently have.
Okay.
Distinct from EV charging.
Not the EV charger number.
Got it. Just wanted to, yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, I guess I would also what is staff's opinion? What is Michelle's opinion about trying to go with a higher number? Is that something that Climate Action Committee has also discussed? And
for the clean air vehicles or EV charging?
No, for the EV charging stations, like more plug ready, or more actual plug-in stations.
Yeah. My thought on it at this point is that, the way that our current requirement is designed is so that it's really easy to install chargers after construction. We make sure that they've got all of the electrical capacity that they need, which does include load management later on. And that basically all you have to do is, put wires through a conduit, and then you just, plug the charger right into that. So it makes sure that there's no added cost of, ripping up concrete or anything like that. And it does allow developers to delay the installation of EV chargers. They already have to put in 20%, but the other 80% can be delayed. But I think that, at this time, people that live in multifamily buildings, the number of people that have EVs is much lower than 20%. And at some point, there's going to be a demand from the EV owners that will create an incentive for the building owners to put those chargers in, and it's not going to cost them very much extra. But at the time of actually construction, they can reduce their very large costs and not have to worry about, buying thousands and thousands of dollars worth of chargers. So in that sense, for kind of helping out the people that are building these large multifamilies that we want to see in the city, keeping it at 20% and having that charging readiness, I feel like is a pretty good middle ground. And it kind of makes us ready for the future, but we don't require this huge expenditure right now. That said, there's definitely an argument to be made that the more chargers, the better, and we want lots of chargers everywhere. And that comes down to a policy question, of course. But yeah, I think my general thought is that the readiness is the most important piece of this, and 20% is more than fulfilling demand at the moment. Jeff, feel free to jump in if you have thoughts on this.
No, I think, Michelle, you did a nice job of responding to the question.
Yeah, I mean, we have competing interests here. One is keeping housing more affordable. Second is encouraging kind of sustainable transportation. Seems like it's a reasonable balance. I don't know how developers would treat adding the chargers in later. Is that a cost they would charge to to a tenant, to a specific tenant for using that space or something. So that might be an obstacle later, whereas it's done now, it's already bought and paid for and kind of forgotten. I'm a little ambivalent about trying to ask for more now, but you know, it seems like we're at a reasonable middle ground in some ways. So.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. I have some comments about that, but
Okay.
I should have let you. I should have let you continue to running the meeting because we got into comment before we got public comment. So let me just, so I'm remiss in not letting the public comment. So let me ask two more questions and then we'll let the public in. One question is, have you done a survey of what other municipalities are doing in terms of percentage of EV charges required in multifamily new construction?
I haven't done a strict survey, but from what I've seen, we're ahead of the game.
Okay.
I think
And
Berkeley
then-
might be about equivalent, and there's
Okay.
a few that are below us.
Okay. And then you made a statement about there's not demand for that in multifamily yet. Is that based on data or?
Yeah, I mean, I know that within the city of Albany, our total EV ownership numbers are still below 20%. And at least anecdotally, I know that the majority of EV owners live in single family homes. I don't have specific numbers on ownership in multifamilies though.
Okay. Well, just before I forget, that could be a chicken and egg problem. People in multifamily housing might not have electric vehicles because they have no chargers.
Yeah, certainly.
Commissioner McLeod, do you have a question?
Well, just to put it in context, this is a 3-year decision, basically, right? Because it's revisited in 3 years, at which time we could easily bump it up, and I'm sure the numbers will go up in terms of EV ownership and usage. So, you know, it's not a real long-term decision, and it's something that could be modified reasonably soon.
Okay, that's more of a statement, but so
Yes,
here's another.
That was my last statement.
Here's another question. Here's another question. What is the governor's mandate for when we should be selling all electric vehicles? Do you remember that, Michelle?
2035.
2035.
Right.
That's only 10 years. Well, no more than 10 years from now. But anyway, coming up very soon. So let's let any public comment in. Staff, if you would, please.
Yep, we have one speaker. Lucinda, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Hi, Lucinda Young. I'm a longtime Albany resident. Michelle, I just want to thank you on a great presentation. I'm really happy to finally see Albany going forward with an all-electric requirement. I've, followed the many cities around our state that have done this some time ago, and not only in our state, but I just read Washington, D.C. just a couple months ago did it. So I'm just glad that we're finally getting on board with this. And I think given that 1/3 of our carbon emissions are from residential and non-residential gas, this is really critical to reach our climate action goals. Thank you for this issue finally getting to where we are. I did want to, Commissioner Moman had mentioned he thought that all electric was confusing and we needed to have something saying, gas prohibited. I don't see that confusion at all. And I think it's best to present this in a positive way, which is a all electric requirement than a gas prohibition. And I think other cities that have done this refer to as an all electric. So I don't know. I didn't see that as ambiguous or requiring any further elaboration. And I did want to also agree with Commissioner Chairman Pelch that 20% I think does seem low for EV chargers, given that our state is moving towards, our goal is to move to all electric sales by 2035. But, I would defer to, I know there are a lot of competing considerations. So, I trust that the commission will make the right decision there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And next speaker, please.
Yes, David Wimmer, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Well, the previous speaker basically said it all, so I'm not going to repeat it. And I just, just say I totally agree with all her comments. And once again, thank you, Michelle. What a great presentation. And thank you all for getting us to this momentous occasion. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
And that does it for public speakers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great, thank you. And the last public speaker reminded me that I want to thank you as well, and thank you for bringing this forward. I am overjoyed that this is coming forward, and I wish we had done it. I wish we'd been able to do it a couple of years ago, but it's here now. So great. So just since I have the floor, don't want to monopolize it, but I will just follow up on the things that I've been talking about. I guess it does make sense that I'm very glad that we have this trigger for for when there's a sprinkler requirement to go all electric. It does make it that's very clean and it makes sense. But I was thinking of kitchen remodels where people are going to take out the gas appliance and put in another gas appliance. I wish we could catch that, but I guess the devil's in the details, because if you make that too broad, then you might affect those whose gas water heater goes out, which unfortunately is a problem that people need to fix immediately. And if they don't have the electric hookups, then they're kind of stuck. And that's I don't know how to solve that problem, but it's a problem that has definitely occurred to at least one person that I know who wanted to do a heat pump hot water heater, but it's an emergency when you don't have the hot water. So, so I'm fine maybe with leaving that for now. As an owner of a plug-in vehicle for eight and a half years, I'd say that it really the lack of chargers is one of the big factors towards the adoption of electric vehicles, and so I'm really I really want to take every opportunity we can to increase the number of chargers everywhere. But if we're ahead of the game, I don't want to push us too far ahead and make projects not pencil out. So I think I would see if my commissioners would entertain bumping the 20% up to 25%, but otherwise I don't have any other recommendations to make about the ordinance. So let me just make sure that that is true. Yes. And so do any other commissioners have more comments at this time? Go ahead.
Am I muted? We've got to get to 100%, and that would be by 2035, but that leaves us, 3-4 more code cycles, 3-year code cycles, basically. And we're at 25% now, 50% at 2025, 75% at 2028. By 2032, we get to 100%. That's kind of the direction, the trend we need to go in. So I would support 25% now. So if that's part of the proposal, I would support it.
Okay. Commissioner Waddy.
Sure. Just on that, can we maybe ask Michelle what her thoughts are on that, and why what was proposed versus that, before we just jump into changing a number that we think sounds better to us? I know Michelle's put a lot of work into this, and so I just would like to understand what her thoughts are on that before we put that up for a vote.
Yeah, absolutely. The reasoning behind the number 20, part of it is because our electrical capacity requirements are assuming load sharing. And basically the way we've calculated it out is that you can share a 40 amp service between 5 chargers. And that seems to be relatively standard with the kind of load management that's becoming more commonplace in the market. And so our electrical capacity requirements line up nicely with having 20% of the chargers installed. And that way you can not worry about load management at the beginning, and then you'll still have all of the capacity you need. So that was sort of the thought behind it. That said, we could bump it up to 25 and sort of, change the numbers around a little bit there. We might, either people would have to put in some load management at the beginning, or they could bump up the electrical service, which, depending on the building, they could kind of probably pick one and it wouldn't be a huge deal, is my guess. I'd have to look into it a little bit more. In terms of planning out ahead for the future, I will note that 2035 is when gas vehicle sales are supposed to end, but there will surely be gas cars on the road for many years after that. So you don't necessarily have to hit 100% of chargers installed by that timeline. But, that's obviously, more prepared if you do. So.
Yeah, more prepared and more incentive. If people know that they will have the chargers available, more incentive to actually make that purchase of the electric vehicle. So I didn't really understand the calculations about the load share and the 40 amp service, and why the number of 5 chargers would be significant when you have a variable number of spaces.
Yeah, sorry, it's been at least a year since I looked at this, but from what I remember, 40 amps is a pretty standard amount of electrical capacity for a level 2 EV charger. And then if you divide that by 5, you get 8 amps, which is sort of on the lower end of the load management systems. They'll basically say, okay, if we have 5 cars plugged in at once, they can still all get enough. And they usually don't want to go to 6. So that was sort of the thought was, okay, we can put in the load management system so that there's capacity for 20% of spaces. And then once 100% of spaces have chargers, each one of those can share with 4 other spots, can share their capacity. And that sort of gets to what the standard load management system is designed for. Of course, at any given time, you might not actually have 100% of the cars plugged in. That's really unusual. But, in those sort of those rare cases where you have a ton of cars plugged in, which might become more common as you get more chargers and they're all plugged in at night, then it basically works out so that each car is getting enough amperage to actually charge in a timely manner.
Do we know that people are planning charging applications in this manner now?
Yeah, I think as we start getting towards larger and larger numbers of chargers in a single building, it's going to be pretty much impossible to do that without a load management system. The electrical requirements are just going to be way too high. And honestly, they'll be more than what's required because you're not going to have all of the cars plugged in all at once every single day. So the load management system is a great way to reduce costs and also our grid requirements. So I think that's going to be very, very common going forward.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, load sharing will be common, but I don't know. Yeah, okay. I was just wondering if anyone was making that same calculation that you're making as they plan a new multifamily building.
Yeah, if you go up to 25% and then we say, okay, well, it's going to share between 4 spaces instead of 5, it's not a huge difference necessarily.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. And Commissioner Wadi, is that a previous hand raise? Okay, thank you. Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve this tonight then with the change of the 20% of EV charging stations being installed in new multifamily construction to 25%. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. I will poll the commissioners. Commissioner, as I see them on my screen, Commissioner Wadi.
Aye.
And I will say aye as well. Commissioner McLeod.
I'll say aye as well.
And Commissioner Moman?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, that passes with that one change. So thank you once again, Michelle. And we will end that item. And we still have a couple more items to go, and we've got 10 minutes until 10. So let's see, get back to my agenda here. Okay, we have the Foodland Night Market report, which is item 8.2. Staff, did you want to make some comments on this?
Yes, thank you, Chair Pelch. This is intended to be a brief report. We had, as the commission recalls, you approved a conditional use permit for Foodland to have a series of events this summer and fall. In the most recent August event, there was some impacts on neighboring city park the day after the event, with trash flying along Buchanan Street and the Bay Trail. There were also reports of heavy motor vehicle congestion and difficult to find bicycle parking facilities. This agenda item is intended as a simple report, and it's my recommendation that the commission, as sitting as a quasi-judicial body, take care this evening not to get into deep statements about this in concern with due process and potential perception of biases if we were to take more extensive actions in the future, either to approve or not approve future use permits or to consider further enforcement actions. There are processes and procedures that we have to follow in those, and this is not the time for the commission to weigh in on those. I do want to say that we took the matter seriously. The Monday morning after the event, it came to our attention. I personally was there over the weekend, observed the parking situation and the motor vehicle situation. Also was there Monday morning, observed the trash. We arranged for our public works crews to take care of the matter immediately so that the park was as welcoming as we could make it for people who were there to enjoy the open space. This is something that I believe is best handled at the staff level. As I said, there may be a role for the commission. There certainly will be a role for the commission in the coming years for this event and other events like it. But again, it's important to follow due process procedures in considering these things, and it's just not time tonight to weigh in on those. There has been some comments received that there were some public comments, some comments provided to the commission and to city council and to others immediately after the event that are not part of the public record this evening. That was intentional. Again, if we were to ultimately take some sort of an enforcement action, we would need to build an administrative record that is carefully constructed in consultation with the city attorney. And this is not the opportunity, this is not the time and place to do that. If and when that happens, that we will make that communication public and part of the public record at a meeting. And I also want to mention that we do have an important relationship with Golden Gate Fields, setting aside people's feelings about the horse racing industry. I understand and appreciate that. Golden Gate Fields has been a good corporate citizen, and the city departments, particularly our public safety departments, rely on them a great deal for a variety of things. One recent example is it was a gathering area during the fire on Albany Hill. It was a site for vaccinations for many, many thousands of people in the East Bay during the early stages of the vaccination process for COVID, so on and so forth. There are many other examples. So I think we want to approach this ultimately to fix the problem, which I'm certainly committed to do. And I believe Golden Gate Fields and Foodie Land has expressed their willingness to do that as well. But do it in a constructive way, come up with some guidelines in the future for events so that people can enjoy our waterfront area and the Golden Gate Fields property and use that parking lot as best as we can and do it in a responsible way. And I think I'm confident that we could, I'm hopeful, I should say, that we could bring back to the commission sometime in the near future some guidelines that you could consider and would hopefully be ensure that the future this kind of thing doesn't happen. They do have some events coming up in the near future in October. I believe the first or second weekend of October. We'll be keeping a close eye on that as well. And I'm confident that the Golden Gate Fields people and Foodie Land operators take this seriously and will do their best to ameliorate any issues that come up. So that's my report. I'd be happy to take any questions from the commission. Thank you.
Before we do that, I just want to jump in and make a motion to extend the meeting. And I hope we don't have to go this long, but just for ease of motions, to extend the meeting till 10:30. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. I will poll the commissioners. Commissioner Waddy?
Reluctantly, yes.
Commissioner McLeod?
Yes.
Commissioner Moman?
Yes.
And I say yes as well. Okay, and so commissioners, do you have questions of Director Bond? Commissioner Moman?
Yeah, I'm curious since this Foodie Land event has occurred multiple times in the past. I would just like to know if city try to understand the reasons behind the situation that has occurred this time. What was the kind of reason behind that? Was it mismanagement or planning?
It's a good question. I don't know exactly what the breakdown was in communication. That there were people there that were assigned to that task of cleanup, and I don't know why exactly that broke down and the area of the Buchanan and the public areas weren't addressed. But I think you're asking a good question and something that we'll, again, working at the staff level with the operator, we'll try to get to the bottom of.
Thank you.
Commissioner McLeod?
Is the applicant here or the organizer?
Yes, I believe
attendance. So. Okay, well, I guess I would just ask, so what has been communicated to them? Has it, you said you sent a letter. Could you elaborate a little bit on what was said in the letter? And then are they aware of the other letters we've received? Have they seen those?
I don't know what I don't recall sending all the letters to the operators. Those letters were addressed to either the commission or city council. But I, in an email, expressed, I think in no uncertain terms, that we were disappointed in that and that it needed to be addressed. I don't have my email open.
Specifically address the trash problem and congestion problem, or?
The trash problem was I think the easiest to address, right? I mean, it's clearly a correlation between the event and the management of the event and the impact on the city park. Traffic congestion on Interstate 80 on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon is a little bit harder to address. Certainly there was congestion going in there. We all saw it. I think that, I don't know, that's a harder thing to mitigate frankly.
And has the applicant said anything about what they're going to do differently for this next event, or?
We haven't had those conversations with them yet.
And they are here tonight, so we could ask them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe that's the next thing to do.
Okay. Any other commissioners have comments of Director Bond? If not, perhaps we should take public comment and then comments from commissioners and questions to the applicant as well after public comment. So why don't we go ahead to public comment, and please raise your hand if you wish to speak now, and please let the folks in.
Okay, great. First speaker, Amy Smollins, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Hi there, thanks. I've been following the Foodie Land Market since 2019 and have been supportive of it, keeping in mind that large events can generate various types of pollution. Your body directed them to provide and promote free bicycle parking and BART shuttles, reduce waste, and clean up after themselves. I really supported the event in concept, but it just seems like after 3 years, the conditions have gotten worse as it's gotten more popular. So last month, I wrote a letter with a lot of details and sent some photos about what I experienced. We biked in, we came in on Buchanan, rode through the parking lot, and then along the Bay Trail south to Berkeley and back. So we saw it literally from every side and every end of the venue. In short, car traffic was completely congested and backed up in all directions. It created a terrible amount of emissions, much of which I and other people inhaled on our bikes. Traffic was at a standstill. There were so many cars that some were pulling into spots on Buchanan and into the lots by the Berkeley soccer field. So taking spaces from people going to the beach or the Bulb or the Bay Trail or the soccer fields. SP11 in your document says to minimize delays entering the event, and that clearly was not happening. There was zero signage about bike parking from any directions. The car parking attendants didn't know where the bike parking was. There was no signage along the Bay Trail saying, hey, there's an event with free bike parking for you guys. People are biking on the Bay Trail all the time. Something like that would be great. The trash, you said that it was a misunderstanding that they were only cleaning up inside the Golden Gate Field lot, and hopefully that's something you've dealt with, and they'll clean up outside the lot, because there was garbage on the beach and in the dune restoration area and on Buchanan along the Bay Trail. So I have a few simple suggestions to address and mitigate these environmental issues. When Albany has a hazardous waste collection day, we have to sign up electronically, and they limit arrivals at one time to minimize traffic congestion. We sign up electronically to go to the DMV or to get a COVID shot. So why not? People sign up online for the event for Foodie Land anyway. So a major way to reduce emissions at one time is to limit arrivals for any one time. I'm sure the organizers have numbers of how many people show up. And so pick a cap, staff, pick a number and cap the reservations for any hour-long period of time. And then make an honest, real, legitimate effort to promote the free bicycle parking on the website, have conspicuous signage on the Bay Trail, Buchanan, and in the parking lot to welcome the events. And please, let's address the environmental concerns so we can have a Foodie Land we all support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Okay. Next speaker, Lucinda Young. You have 3 minutes starting now.
Hi. I'm Lucinda Young. I'm a longtime Albany resident, and I actually have never been to Foodie Land, but I had I do frequently, or several times a week, walk at Albany Bulb. Albany doesn't have a lot of natural refuges. Basically, we've got Albany Hill and we've got Albany Bulb, and I made the mistake of going to Albany Bulb on a night in August or evening in August when Foodie Land was happening. And I was appalled at the traffic mess. I drove, and usually there's no problem getting a parking spot on Buchanan. I was lined up in traffic at least 15 minutes, and just by luck, someone pulled out and I was able to get a parking spot. And, you know, I saw cars making illegal U-turns. It was truly a mess. And then after I found parking, I did walk, and I have a kind of a ritual when I walk at Albany Bowl, because there's trash. And I always take a bag with me, and as I'm walking, I pick up trash. Usually a lot of plastic takeout containers. Well, it was the difference on that occasion was absolutely amazing or appalling. There was so much more food wrapper waste than I typically see. I'm not talking about twice as much. I'm talking about, 4 or 5 times as much. And what was also disturbing is all the public waste cans were overflowing. The recycling bins and the landfill bins were overflowing. So, I ended up taking my bag of collected waste home. Most people wouldn't have been motivated to do that, and will just have added it to next to the waste bins. And, our beautiful bay is right there. And was unavoidable that a lot of this waste ended up in our bay, adding to, the huge problem of contamination of our bay, and most of it plastic waste. So, I cut my walk short, and I really experienced this foodie land as disrupting my ability to enjoy the Albany Bowl as an Albany resident. And I would really ask the commission to ask the question. I know you have a contract through October, but ask the question. I know we're getting permit fees for this event, but let's weigh those permit fees that we're getting against the harm that this event is environmentally causing. It's also probably taking away business from our Solano restaurants. Anyway, my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And I think that does it for public speakers. So I'll bring it back to the commission for comments and or questions to the applicant. And please note that we are past 10 o'clock. So please, if you could be concise in your comments and questions, it would be appreciated. Commissioner Waddy.
Sure. I don't have any comments to provide, but I would just be interested in hearing a response given the conversation to date from the Foodie Land representative, and just let them explain what went on and what they're planning on doing about it.
That sounds great. Can we let them in and have them make comments?
Mm-hmm. Kevin, you can go ahead and speak.
Hi, this is Kevin. I'm from Foodie Land. Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hello. Welcome.
Hi. So I'd like to address the issue on trash regarding our event, and then also kind of the procedure of how we handle trash during the event. We did take some pictures. So we do take pictures each night after the event, and then also during the event. So these are some kind of post pictures after the event. And so this was most likely, I believe, on Saturday night. Just kind of outlining the event. We always do a walkthrough each night. We keep our janitorial, the event ends at 9:30. We keep our janitorial staff till at least 1:30 to 2 a.m. to make sure we go through the parking lot, we clean everything. So these are some pictures at night that just kind of shows the fence line of the property out to Buchanan, that the area, we did make sure that the area was clean. And then there are some additional pictures here that just kind of show in the morning that the area is, we've cleaned up the area, also kind of the area within Golden Gate Fields, as well as pictures that our janitorial staff took right here, just showing that they did go out all the way to Buchanan. They did go out to Buchanan. They do sweep actively kind of post-event. And they also walk the entire bike trail to make sure that each area is clean, all the way down to Gilman as well. But there are some changes that we are going to make, which is dedicating about 4 to 5 janitorial staff that will stay on Buchanan, and then kind of walk through the area throughout the event. So a lot of the issues that we've noticed is that the trash does kind of pick up a little bit. People do kind of drop trash occasionally during the event, and then picking it up at night, the winds may have blown it away by the time they've gotten to it. So we do want to make that change where we're having janitorial staff throughout the whole event, walking the bike trail, walking throughout Buchanan and Gilman as well, to make sure that we are catching everything, and then also replacing trash liners in the public recycling bins, as well as the trash bins as well.
Thank you. Did you want to speak to parking and traffic management as well?
Oh yeah, sure. So regarding parking, we did have a discussion with Golden Gate Fields, and one of the issues was on Gilman. There was road construction that Caltrans is doing on the property. So that did result in some additional traffic with the loss of one lane coming in from Gilman, because the majority of traffic does come in through Gilman, and that did kind of create more traffic than we typically have on average. Because our events are ticketed and also time slotted, meaning that there are dedicated time slots when people come to the event and they buy the tickets prior to coming. So we do set caps based on the parking the ability for parking, to ensure that there aren't too many people at any given time at the event.
Thank you. Just a question for me then. Are you saying that people were able to enter the event by coming down Gilman Street and then the frontage road up and over the Golden Gate Fields Hill and into the parking lot?
Yes. So the majority of traffic, I would say probably about 70% of traffic does come through the Gilman side, from the Berkeley side. And then the rest does come in through Buchanan.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Did any other commissioner have questions that weren't answered? I'm not seeing any. Oh, there's a Commissioner McLeod.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole host of things. I mean, my experience, I did go by the first event in August and saw traffic backed up under the underpasses on both sides. And I do appreciate you making the biking area bigger and easier to get into, but you know, I on your website, there's no location of the bike parking on your site map. When I tried to ride my bike to the bike parking areas through the parking lot with a lot of people backing up, zooming around, looking for parking spaces, was not ideal. There were a lot of kids with their parents trying to go to this bike parking lot. It seemed quite dangerous. So some sort of clear path of travel would be much better. You know, and I've said it before, the litter for me is unacceptable if it's blowing on me into a state park and onto the Bay Trail. I've said that many times. So, you know, I really do want your event to be successful, but I want you to make as big of an effort to make sure that, you know, there are no negative impacts. You know, I would also point out that on your next event, the soccer fields will be in full soccer season, and there are going to be thousands of soccer players, youth and adults, going there on that weekend. So that's going to be an additional traffic burden. And I just was wondering if you've been talking to the city of Berkeley about traffic management. When I rode my bike along the frontage road, you know, about 5 p.m. on the first event, the traffic there was backed up going northbound about 3/4 of a mile trying to get onto Gilman. So, you know, I just wonder what kind of strategies you could have to manage this a little better. You know, getting alternative means of transportation there is much better than people going by car. So I do appreciate you having the shuttle. But my thought was that the shuttle's stuck in all that backup and very difficult for it to get to the event too. So it's kind of an interesting situation. So somehow going forward, I, you know, would like some sort of solutions.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone else have questions for the vendor, for the applicant? If not, let's just go to pure comments then, and you can stop sharing your screen. Thank you. Anyone else have further comments? Commissioner Momin or Wadi? If
No
not,
comments from my side.
okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and make some comments then. I appreciate the comments of Commissioner McLeod. And so I think that, you know, considering the traffic was backed up, you probably need to spread out the traffic more during the day or have a lower cap on certain times of the day when traffic was backed up. And as Commissioner McLeod said, we, you know, there'll be additional traffic in October, so that needs to be taken into consideration. I will say that I have attended Foodieland once, I have, well, let's see. One comment before I make other comments, one question of staff. I'm not seeing how, I appreciate your comments about due process, but I'm not seeing how posting letters from the public on the agenda would be a violation of due process.
It's hopefully we don't go there, but in an enforcement scenario where there's a violation of conditional use permit, we have to go into a series of notices and issue citations and appeals and so forth. It's a very structured judicial process, and the creation of the administrative record is critical to everybody participating in it. And so in such a situation, it would be important for us to give both sides, ourselves and the applicant, an opportunity to review the evidence, comment on it, and put all that material together for you or for whoever the hearing officer is in one complete package, rather than to kind of bring in pieces of it a little bit at a time. So again, this is maybe me kind of spiraling a little bit out in paranoia of, wow, if this really goes off the rails, how do we deal with this? But that's what we do in code enforcement, is we're really careful about constructing the process, because if we fail in constructing the process properly, we won't be successful in court if it ends up there. So I want to be really careful about that and provide an equal opportunity for both sides, for us to do an analysis, for the people who have different perspectives to be able to participate and build that complete record. And we haven't had an opportunity to do that in this case.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I guess we'll have to agree to disagree about that. I think any comments by the public should be public record, and they can also be reused again should we have that judicial process going forward. So I would have appreciated the public letters being part of the agenda tonight.
Well, I want to clarify, the commission received directly all the comments. It's just not part of the public record for this evening's meeting. And if and when there is an administrative hearing, it will be. But
understood. I guess
nothing has been kept from the commission.
I wasn't implying that at all. But they have been not been made publicly available yet. So I have to agree I'll have to disagree that was necessary to keep those from the agenda. And let's see. I think one would be right to be skeptical about this vendor, this applicant, seeing having had to give them feedback, significant feedback for each event so far, and having to ask them to make significant course corrections. So I would like to still give them the benefit of the doubt, but I think there's some serious concerns being raised here tonight. And I don't have a problem with our relationship with Golden Gate Fields. I don't think that that's a relationship that's, I don't think that that's a very two-way relationship. The Albany portion of the Bay Trail had to be taken from Golden Gate Fields by eminent domain, and Golden Gate Fields opposed any pedestrian bike trail that would come alongside their property along Gilman Street. So I'm not seeing them as a great corporate, a great citizen at this point. That being said, bringing it back to the vendor, let's give them another chance. But I remain very concerned and very skeptical. And any further comments from other commissioners? Oh, sorry. I did want to mention one more thing. And I'm not sure Commissioner McLeod mentioned it, that there wasn't any directional signage to the bike parking, and the staff did not know where the bike parking was. I think both of those have to be corrected. Commissioner McLeod.
Just briefly, and I would really like this event to be successful. It's a great use of an underutilized space. It's obviously a fun and popular event, drawing people from all over. So, whatever has to be done to mitigate some of the negative impacts, I think is really important. So, I could have a lot of suggestions, but maybe this is not the time or place to do it. But, I think there are things that could be done better, and really would like it to be successful. So,
well, certainly you would think that you could reach out to the applicant directly. Applicant, are you willing to take comments from the commissioners?
Oh, yes, definitely. We'll be glad to implement anything that you guys recommend. And then also we'll make those changes regarding the bike signage map. So we'll create a bike map specifically to guide people to the bike path, to the bike parking, as well as kind of creating like a barricaded area where the bikes can travel safely away from traffic.
Okay. And I hear that you're also willing to accept further comment from commissioners and others. So we can send those your way if other things come up.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Great. So if there's no further comments, we can move on to our last item. Any last comments on that? And thank you, Kevin, for being here tonight. If not, let's move on to our last item, which is much more, how to say it. And it's a very important item, but less to do with policy and more to do with great appreciation. So, oops, I lost my screen. We have a resolution of appreciation for Commissioner Doug Donaldson. Oh, there we go. And does staff have any report on that, or does it stand as it is?
It stands on its own, I think.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, staff, for coming up with that. As the item mentions, Doug was on the commission for years and has been involved in Albany for years, and I assume he wasn't able to make it here tonight because I don't see him on the list. And if he's moved over to the other side of the country, it'd be very late in that time zone in any case. So we'll have to appreciate him in absentia. But I definitely want to offer those appreciations for him having served for so many years and given so much to this community. And it's sad that a relocation had to remove him from this commission. Did anyone else have any comments?
Yeah, it's been great to serve with Doug. He was a great font of information for previous actions by the commission, and a great source of institutional knowledge, and obviously a very dedicated volunteer for our city who's served for a long time and put in a lot of hours. So thank you, Doug, for that.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Moman?
Yeah, no, I do have great appreciation and gratitude for Commissioner Donaldson for for his exceptional service to the city for such a long time. Unlike my fellow commissioners here, I have worked with him for a comparatively shorter time, but it has been a great learning experience working alongside him for the last 2 years on some really important long-range city planning projects and private projects. He has contributed significantly to all these projects with his insightful comments and directions and strong supports to the idea that he believed in, and also equally strong opposition to the idea that he did not believe in. He always came prepared with thorough analysis and precise knowledge on the subject of discussion, and raise really important issues. I take inspiration from him and regard him as a great role model for myself. Thank you, Commissioner Donaldson.
Thank you, Commissioner Momin, for those comments. Commissioner Wadi.
Sure, and I echo much of what my fellow commissioners have said. I actually grew up with Commissioner Donaldson's son, went to middle school with him, and so I've known of at that time sort of Mr. Donaldson for many years, and so it was really nice and welcoming to join the commission with him on it. He always came incredibly prepared for meetings, and I think really epitomized the ability to still have civil disagreements on policy and still be able to get along with people, even if you ended up on different sides of the vote. And so I think that is an art of policy making that we shouldn't forget, and try to continue that legacy moving on, even if he's no longer on our commission. So I'm sad to see him go. Wish him all the best as life takes him in a different direction. Thanks.
Yes, and I too wish him all the best. I had the pleasure of serving with him in 2013 and 2014, as well as on the current commission. And thanks for other commissioners for noting his preparation for meetings. It's quite outstanding. So with that, I'll just say once again, thank you, Doug, for whenever you're listening to this recording, and good luck, best wishes. And that concludes our meeting for tonight. Next meeting is September 28th in 2 weeks. Are there any final notes from staff or commissioners?
Just for the record, can we say that the proclamation was approved by acclamation, something to that?
Oh, I apologize that I didn't. Okay, yes. Is there any dissent from that resolution?
Thank you.
Seeing none, approved by acclamation, approved unanimously. And thank you once again, Doug.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right, then, if there's nothing further, thank you, everyone, and have a pleasant rest of your evening.
Okay, good night, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, good night.